Chapter 1555. After walking for an unknown period of time, Arbor's vision blurred, and her body was involuntarily pulled down by a force. Screams and cheers mixed with all kinds of mocking laughter sounded in her ears, and the rumbling sound of drums greeted her. All kinds of excited voices instantly surrounded her. Arbor flashed in the air, adjusted her posture slightly, and landed steadily on the ground. Looking carefully, she saw that there were two young men and a woman beside her, and their faces could no longer be seen. Because the three of them were in a very sorry state. Their outer clothes were almost torn into strips, their expressions were very nervous, and the swords in their hand were trembling slightly. Seeing Arbor appear, the woman's expression changed slightly, and then she shouted at her, "Little girl, quickly retreat. Retreat behind us." Arbor was slightly startled. Looking around, she realized that the place where she fell was actually surrounded by people in a circular arena. The spectators in the surrounding rows seemed to be watching a feast, and they cheered thunderously. Some excited people in the front row even used the sticks in their hands to knock on the railings in front of them, and they screamed, quickly go. Quickly go. TSK, another little ant from the lower star field has come. My little cuties, quickly use your sharp claws and teeth to tear these ants that crawled out of the cesspool. Oh. Excited screams filled Arbor's ears, causing her to frown instantly, and her heart was filled with displeasure. Noisy. Perhaps seeing that this newcomer was not scared silly by the scene in front of her, the man in the front row was slightly stunned, and then he stood up and laughed loudly. A new round of betting has begun. Everyone, let's guess if these ants from the lower star region will be able to leave our thunderclap plains alive this time. Ha ha. Oh. Everyone in the audience roared excitedly. Their eyes were burning with excitement, as if they didn't mind watching a good show. The two men and the woman looked at each other and took a deep breath. One of the men said, "Princess, if there's a chance later, take His Highness away first." "No, Ji-Feng, if you dare to die, I will never forgive you." Oh. Loud shouts came from the outer ring, interrupting their conversation once again. Haha, what a princess. Let me tell you, entering the territory of our Shantian prefecture. You can stop calling me Her Highness from the lower star field. We only have the prefecture lord here. Only the mercenary king. Whoever is strong will be in charge. Oh. So, an arrow instantly pierced into the mouth of a man who was yelling loudly with the speed of a clap of thunder. It pierced through her throat and pinned her to the back of the chair. Everyone stared at the man who had been nailed to the back of the chair by an arrow with shock and disbelief in their eyes. Following that man's extremely shocked gaze until his death, he looked towards the opposite arena. A little girl in plain clothes put away the bow in her hand expressionlessly and glanced at them coldly. Noisy. The crowd was in an uproar. Chapter 1556. Fuck. An ant from the lower star domain actually dares to be so arrogant? An accident. This must be an accident. That punk must have been careless for that stoic-faced girl to seize the initiative and take his life. That's right. That must be it. None of Shantian Prefecture's citizens dared to believe it. It was simply impossible for someone from the lower star domain, who had just set foot in Shantian Prefecture, to have such great martial strength. Unless she was a lucky cat running into a dead mouse, and was able to kill a member of the Leopard Mercenary Group in one strike. The Leopard Mercenary Group was a 3-star mercenary group in their Shantian Prefecture, so its members had to be around 4-star spiritualists at the very least. Logically speaking, the true strength of these ants from the lower star domain was only around the cultivation of level 13 mystic cultivators. A little mystic cultivator could kill a spiritualist in one strike? Everyone didn't believe it. They only felt that their eyes were playing tricks on them, and that unlucky fellow from the Leopard Mercenary Group was nailed to death by an arrow. Haha, what a laughable weakling. He actually died at the hands of a little mystic cultivator from the lower star domain. If word got out, it would truly make people laugh their heads off. Arbor noticed that apart from the boisterous thousands of spectators in the outer spectator stands, there were also several dozen mid-level winged zombies wandering around the large arena. Many corpses were hanging at the edge of the arena, and it looked like they had just been torn apart not long ago. Arbor blinked and unhurriedly switched to a crow repeating crossbow. He raised his arm horizontally and calmly pointed at one of the flying zombies. Ugly things should be shot from afar and not allowed to get close to one's body, so as to avoid dirtying one's clean clothes. A crow gold arrow streaked across the sky at an extremely fast speed. This time, everyone clearly saw what it was. That was a high-grade mystic weapon, and it looked rather out of the ordinary. Although most of them had been in Shantian Prefecture for many years, they might not even have a decent mystic weapon, let alone a spirit weapon. Seeing the little fellow take out a mystic weapon and shoot, some people were very envious. However, they were soon shocked by what they saw. However, the little girl didn't move much. Instead, she shot a few arrows at the flying corpse puppets around her. Following a few explosive sounds, the explosive arrows made a series of noises as they struck the corpse puppets. Soon, the first corpse puppet's head was torn apart, and it fell heavily to the ground. It was followed by a second and a third. Arbor waved his hand, and the little white snake quickly slithered out, twisting its small body excitedly. "Bite more people to death," Arbor said expressionlessly. Since they don't care about the lives of others, it means that they don't care about life and death. To them, life and death are nothing more than a joke. "And in, little master, I'm going." The little white snake twisted its small body excitedly and instantly turned into a great void serpent. Its head was as tall as a mountain, and its tail was very thick. It opened its mouth and bit the arms of several people, causing them to scream in fear. Black smoke rose from their arms. Under the control of the power of the netherworld, some people who were controlled by the little white snake started to fight with other people. At this time, there was no more laughter or applause on the spectator stand. Instead, it was filled with panicked screams and angry roars. How could this be? The arena was in chaos. Chapter 1557. Why did that expressionless little girl from the lower star domain suddenly attack people? Many people in the back row couldn't even be bothered to watch the show. For their own safety, they hurriedly turned around and ran. What kind of joke was this? Previously, when they were toying with those people from the lower star domain, they watched them fight with the corpse puppets on the arena. That wasn't dangerous at all, which was why so many people bought tickets and came to watch. But it was different now. The targets of enslavement had changed to them. How could they continue to happily carry on? Moreover, there were thousands of spectators who bought tickets to watch the battle between humans and corpses. How boring was this? Arbor's lips curled up slightly. She walked leisurely to a middle-aged man. He was the one who sat in the front row seat just now. He looked like the person in charge of this arena. At this moment, that man had already been beaten up by his companions. As the little white snake released its power of the netherworld, more and more people joined their side. This person in charge had been having a headache since the beginning. The battle between humans and corpses was supposed to be exciting, but the spectators were about to be beaten to death. Naturally, he was in a very bad mood. However, when Arbor dragged him to her side and kicked his head, his mood became even more depressed and uncomfortable. Stop. Miss, I admit defeat." So what if he admitted defeat? Even if he admitted defeat, he would still be beaten. Arbor didn't say another word. She stomped her little foot firmly on his face a few times. "Tell me, how do you want to die? I can fulfill your wish no matter how you want to die." The middle-aged man trembled all over. This, miss, let's talk nicely." Arbor didn't think there was anything to talk about with someone who harbored ill intentions towards her. If not for her great skill and courage, she would be the one being treated like a monkey for everyone to admire. These people deliberately circled the arena and attracted so many corpse puppets just to watch the people from the lower star domain put on a good show. If she was weak, she would be like those people in front of her, hanging on the railings in tatters and being bitten off by corpse puppets. How could such people be forgiven for harming the weak for their own pleasure? Don't kick my face, girl, don't kick. I could provide you with spirit coins. How much? Arbor asked coldly. Spirit coins are probably the currency used in the 6 prefectures continent, probably made from spirit stones. Although she had a lot of spirit stones, she didn't have a single spirit coin. If she wanted to travel around the 6 prefectures in the future, spirit coins would naturally be indispensable. Since someone was so tactful and wanted to offer her spirit coins, she naturally wouldn't refuse. The middle-aged man seemed to have experienced the little stoic's terror, and he licked his lips and said with a smile, 2,000 spirit coins. To be able to provide it to your excellency. Hee. Bang! Arbor stomped down, and the 2 men and 1 woman beside him felt their faces hurt. The middle-aged man screamed and cried, Don't step on my little grand-aunt. 20,000 for 2. I have 20,000 spirit coins here. I can give them all to you. Arbor picked him up from the ground and slapped him without saying a word. Are you trying to dismiss a beggar? The 2 men and 1 woman. That middle-aged man really cried this time, grieving terribly. Chapter 1558. He suspected that he might not have looked at the almanac when he left the house today. Otherwise, how could he have run into such a malefic star? Arbor pulled up the middle-aged man with a long face and said coldly and indifferently, Just now, I saw that you looked like you were in charge. Gambling isn't a day or 2, so you should have earned quite a bit. After her analysis, she increasingly felt that what she said was very reasonable. Thus, she nodded at herself and said coldly, Hand over everything in your inner world, or die. When the word die came out her mouth, the middle-aged man felt that the girl in front of him wasn't joking. That cold and sharp gaze, coupled with that stoic expression, truly made one's heart tremble and exclaim in awe, Miss, I really don't have more than 30,000 spirit coins in total. That middle-aged man cried pitifully. I swear, I absolutely won't deceive Mississippi, you swear? What's the use of swearing? On the side, the extremely disheveled princess couldn't help but scold. Little girl, don't believe him. This person has no integrity to speak of. Those people all died in his hands. We absolutely can't let a tiger return to the mountain. That's right. Otherwise, there will be no end of trouble in the future. Following the direction that Princess pointed, Arbor looked again at the dozen or so tattered bodies hanging on the railings. The princess couldn't suppress her grief and indignation. Perhaps they didn't expect that their party would encounter such a huge crisis on the first day they happily came to Shantian Prefecture. Arbor turned her small head again, and her cold and lonely gaze landed on that middle-aged man. Are you going to hand it over or not? If he handed it over, it would save her some trouble. If he didn't hand it over, she would still have to search his inner world. How troublesome. One had to know that after consuming the Xuanji corridor body for such a long time, her cultivation and spiritual senses had improved slightly. Her cultivation had already officially entered the phenomenal success stage of level 14 Mystic Cultivator. Her spiritual senses had broken through to level 4. Her conscience couldn't be mentioned in the same breath as other people's. In terms of cultivation alone, her cultivation was naturally lower than this middle-aged man in front of her. However, in terms of spiritual sense, he was much stronger than the man in front of him. The consciousness of the man in front of her didn't even surpass the 10th level of the profound realm. If she wanted to take away this idiot's inner world, it would be a matter of minutes. However, based on the principle of not making a move, if she could be lazy, she still hoped that the middle-aged man would obediently hand it over, so that she wouldn't be bothered. However, that after waiting for a long while, the middle-aged man took out a bag filled with 30,000 spirit coins from his inner world. Apart from that, there was nothing else. Arbor's eyes flashed with a sharp light. He kicked the man's calf. You asked for it. After saying that, he moved his spiritual sense and suddenly attacked the opponent's consciousness pool. He directly opened his spiritual eye and scanned the thief's inner world. The corner of his mouth held a trace of coldness. The middle-aged man had a splitting headache as he held his head. He felt as if his conscience had been torn apart by someone, and everything was starting to go out of his control. No. Before the middle-aged man fainted, his eyes were about to pop out of their sockets when he saw the items in his inner world all fall to the ground with a pitter-patter sound. He wasn't the only one who was stupefied. The two men and one woman watching from the side also gaped as they looked at Arbor in disbelief. Chapter 1559. What was going on? Then, that huge pile of resources on the ground was it the middle-aged man's inner world? How is that possible? Could this little girl with a stoic face be a pervert? How could a normal person open another person's inner world? Not to mention forcefully opening another person's inner world to conduct a search. Arbor squatted on the ground expressionlessly as she looked at the huge pile of items in front of her. "Big liar," she said coldly. There were clearly 10 bags of spirit coins on the ground, with a total of about 300,000 spirit coins. That middle-aged man was only willing to give her one bag, and it was only 30,000 spirit coins. Where was his shame? He was crazy. He still wanted to cheat Jojo? Was Jojo so gullible? He had brought this upon himself. He had no one to blame but himself for seeking his own death. Miss Xiao took the 300,000 spirit coins and picked through the pile of items again. She kept some useful materials and elixirs that caught her eye. Most of the items were useless trash in her eyes. The elixirs among them were at most high-grade, mid-grade blue vein elixirs. They were far inferior to the high-grade purple vein elixirs she had on hand. They weren't of much use to her, so Arbor turned to look at the two men and one woman beside her. "You could take them all. Take it as compensation from this person," the little girl said to them seriously with a stoic face. The woman was stunned. She looked down at the huge pile of items on the ground and looked up at the little girl in a daze. Sure. The elixirs and mystic weapons on the ground were very valuable. But Miss Xiao didn't care at all. The highest grade mystic weapon on the ground was only level 8. And the lowest grade mystic weapon that the giant ape had given her was level 12. How could she care about this junk? "I am Bai Xia from Siyuan Star. This is my younger brother, Bai Jia. My fiancé is Ji Feng." The woman cupped her hands. "Little girl, there are too many things here. Why don't you take some more?" Arbor shook his head. "Take it. Although it's all junk and not very useful, don't waste it." The three of them looked at each other. Bai Xia from Siyuan cupped her hands and said to Arbor, "May I know where you are from?" Could it be that this lady wasn't from the lower star field? He had heard that the resources in every lower star field were similar. Why did he feel that the young lady in front of him was looking down on the treasures on the ground? To them, this was a very rich supply. Seacone planted Arbor. She nodded at the woman with an indifferent expression, then turned to look below the arena. At this time, the crowd on the viewing platform had already scattered like birds and beasts. Not a single person was left. Bai Xia from Siyuan Planet gazed at Xiao Mu in a daze, continuously pondering over Xiao Mu's earlier words. Seacone Planet? Seacone Planet seemed to be similar to Siyuan Planet. It was also one of the continents in the lower star domain. Why did the girl in front of him exude the aura of a nouveau riche? "Hurry up and clean it up." Arbor pointed to the ground and kicked at the railing at the edge of the arena. With one kick, she kicked down a half-dead zombie that was struggling to climb up. She then rubbed her embroidered green shoes on the ground in disgust. Disgusting. Dirty. Arbor walked to the side in a huff. She took out a new pair of shoes from her inner world and put them on. Only then did her feet feel much better. Chapter 1560. When she turned around and returned to Bai Xia's side, the three people had already tidied up everything and stood up. Seeing her come over, the three people nodded at her gratefully. "Little miss, we're lucky to have you this time to resolve our urgent situation." Now that they thought about it, this little great aunt's methods were really very fierce. First, she shot through several zombies in one go to intimidate the audience. Then she made an example of the audience. They didn't know what method she used, but she actually caused the audience to become chaotic and kill each other. The three people's gazes fell on the cute little white snake on the little miss's shoulder. Just now, they clearly saw this little white snake transform into a huge snake that blotted out the sky. It really couldn't be mentioned in the same breath as its current cute little appearance. Arbor didn't say much and reached out to pick up the dying middle-aged man on the ground. This person's conscience had been severely injured, but he was only breathing a little more than a dead person. His gaze towards Arbor was full of terror and terror. You should have some connections to be able to set up a restriction at the Lower Star Domain and the Shuntian Prefecture's passageway. Arbor asked with a frown. Speak. What's your relationship with the Shuntian Prefecture's prefecture lord? Fresh blood oozed from the corners of the middle-aged man's mouth. It looked like he was already gasping for air and wouldn't be able to hold on for much longer. Arbor didn't really want to know who gave the middle-aged man so much power to set up a fighting ring here. In the entire Shuntian Prefecture, apart from the prefecture lord, the people with the greatest power were the prefecture lord's people. Someone who could think of such a sinister method to earn money from the entrance tickets was probably a vicious and ruthless person, and it couldn't be unrelated to the Shuntian Prefecture's prefecture lord. Thinking about it, that middle-aged man earned 300,000 spirit coins just from the entrance tickets alone. No wonder they had to continue operating this money-making business. It was said that the Six Prefectures continent was several dozen times larger than Seacombe Planet's continent, but it was different from Seacombe Planet's continent in terms of luxuriance. In addition, the Six Prefectures were very far apart from each other. Moreover, there weren't many cities in each prefecture that people could rely on for survival, and the number of spiritual lands for cultivation could be counted on one's fingers. The population of Shuntian Prefecture was 100 times that of Seacombe Planet, but the actual usable city area was about the same as Seacombe Planet. Therefore, every city was basically filled to the brim, especially the capital city of Shuntian Prefecture. That went without saying. The distance between the cities is very far. I heard from Senior that we have to reach the nearest city, Jilu City, before nightfall. Otherwise, who knows what kind of danger we will encounter outside the city after dark. Senior. Yes, it's a message left by some seniors on Siyuan who have been to Shuntian Prefecture. Arbor nodded. Normally, Jilu City's entrance fee is 1 mid-grade spirit coin. At this point, Miss Baixia looked at Xiao Mu with a complicated gaze. The young lady had plundered a lot of middle-grade spirit coins from the middle-aged man and had become a veritable nouveau riche. She naturally did not care about a lousy spirit coin. Newcomers have just entered Shuntian Prefecture, so there's no need to be nervous if they don't have spirit coins. At the entrance of Jilu City, 100 middle-grade mystic coins can be exchanged for 1 middle-grade spirit coin. It seemed like Baixia knew the market here better than her. As they spoke, they jumped off the arena, and Baixia chatted with her. Who are those people hanging on the railings to you? We don't know them. Chapter 1561. Arbor nodded, thinking that since she didn't know them and they were so agitated just now, she might have thought that the rotting corpses hanging on the railings were all their brothers and sisters. She knew it. They were both in the Lower Star Sector, and Seacombe Planet wasn't inferior to Siyuan Planet in any way. Why were they able to send so many people while her Seacombe Planet couldn't? Actually, only Baixia, Baizhe, and Jifeng had come from Seacombe Planet to the Six Prefectures continent. On the other hand, besides the 7 people from the Hidden Night Pavilion led by Yuxiu, Xiao Mu's group also included Situ, Yi, Liang Qingqing, Bailey Shi, Wei Nanfeng, and senior sister Doya. More than 10 people going to the 6 prefectures together was something that had never happened before. Thinking of Situ, Yi, and the others, Arbor stopped in her tracks. Actually, I still have a few dawdling companions who haven't arrived yet. I'm not sure if we should continue waiting for them here. There's no need for that. Baixia shook her head. When we passed through the white fog maze, many of us were trapped inside for half a month. The 6 prefectures test is that we must pass through the maze within 15 days. Otherwise, we'll be sent back to the original star sector. Is that so? Xiao Mu gazed at the white fog in bewilderment. Then do you know how long it took you to pass through that white fog barrier? About 8 days, Baizhe said firmly. Even with my intelligence, it took me about 8 or 9 days to get out because it was too difficult to find the exit. Oh, right. Miss Chiao, how long did you spend in there? Arbor was speechless. She really didn't want to say it out loud. She didn't seem to have spent more than 4 hours from climbing the ladder to passing through the maze. It's fine. I was also in the maze and was circled around for 9 days before I came out. Baixia thought that Arbor was upset because he spent more time circling around than them. She quickly comforted him. "Little girl, why don't you come with us to Julu City first? If your companions didn't get sent back, they'll definitely head to the nearest city. You can meet them there then." "That's right. If we wait, it'll take too long, and we can't be sure when they'll come out. If they don't come out after the time limit, they'll be sent back. It's not worth it for you to wait here like an idiot." Xiao Mu thought that this made sense, so she nodded at Bai Xia and decided to head to Julu City first. The group of four walked out of the simple and crude spectator stance. Xiao Mu turned around to look at the middle-aged man who had died with remaining grievances beside the collapsed fighting stage. She smirked and said, "I didn't expect such a simple place to make so much money. The people of the 6 prefectures really love to fight. They can fight anywhere. Even if they build a small Julu city, they can still fight. Miss Chow, the Thunderclap Plains is just outside of the arena. Estes. We have to get there before nightfall," Baizhou interrupted. "Otherwise, the consequences will be unimaginable." The 4 of them walked out of the spectator area and arrived at a temporary market. Chapter 1562. They hadn't even taken 2 steps when they were surrounded by a group of men and women with smiles on their faces. Looking at their attire, they should be locals. They were wearing colorful striped clothes and were all smiling like flowers. The way they looked at them was as if they were looking at fat sheep. "Yo, guess from afar. Looking at your appearances, you should be very powerful people." "Nonsense, go away." Looking at the attire of these young men and women, they are definitely not ordinary people. Otherwise, they wouldn't be able to come down from the arena and pass by our market unscathed. A fat Annie squeezed through the crowd. She used her huge body to squeeze through the crowd. She grinned and waved at Arbor's group of 4. She asked eagerly, "Young lads and young ladies, where are you going? Are you going to the nearest city, Julu City? Do you need me to lead the way? The guide fee is very cheap. Just 5 spirit coins will do." "Damn, fat mom, why don't you go rob a bank?" "Isn't that so? Scram. Young lady, don't listen to her. I will bring you to Julu City. Just 3 spirit coins will do." Two spirit coins. Arbor, Bai Xia, and the rest looked at each other. Why did they feel that the group of people in front of them was like a brothel owner who was trying to get business from everywhere? "1 spirit coin. Give me 1 spirit coin, and I will bring you to Julu City. I guarantee that you will reach there on time before the sky turns dark. There will definitely not be any problems." The person who spoke was only 10 years old. He had a dark and skinny body and a pair of eyes that were sly and lively. "Meng Mai, you little fellow are going against your conscience to deceive people again. Don't listen to him, young lady. Meng Mai's a bad kid. He will definitely bring you to ride on the land whale." "That's right, this child is really evil. He specializes in deceiving guests from the lower star domain." "What land whale?" Arbor asked curiously. "Land whale is a vehicle that is similar to a carriage. It can hold about 30 people at one time. When passing through the thunderous plain, the land whale can effectively avoid the lightning and prevent people from being injured by it." "That's great. It's fast and convenient. Isn't that great?" Before Arbor could say anything, Bai Xia excitedly said, "Then let's take this land whale to Julu City. From the looks of it, it must be your first time coming to Shuntian Prefecture. Andy, let me tell you, that land whale can't afford to sit on it. Every time he rode a land whale, he would have to pay 2 spirit coins per minute. It's not a matter of how many spirit coins you'll be given based on the distance you've traveled. Right. In other words, if you stay on a land whale for an hour, you'll have to pay 120 mid-grade spirit coins. So expensive." Bai Xia looked at the auntie in shock. "That's right." With one hand, the middle-aged woman pulled the skinny, dark-skinned boy to the side. She quickly put her hands on her hips and said, "It's still worth it to give me 3 spirit coins. I will bring you to take a shortcut and guarantee that you will reach the city gate before sunset." As she spoke, the middle-aged woman grinned and kept looking at Arbor and Bai Xia with a smile to show her sincerity. However, Arbor reached out and pulled the skinny, dark-skinned boy in front of him. "Lead the way." Everyone was speechless. "Don't wait for me. Wake up and make up for it tomorrow morning." Chapter 1563. To Tycoon Xiao, spending 120 spirit coins for an hour was nothing at all. As long as he could save some time, it didn't matter how much money he had to spend. That was why Arbor picked up the skinny black boy and led the way without hesitation. As long as they could settle down in Jilu City earlier, money wasn't a big issue. Seeing Arbor pick up the boy and leave, the others were stunned. Then, they shouted in excitement, "Ah, I'll bring you to the land whale's landing port. I only want one spirit coin, too." "Yes, yes, yes. Heavens, esteemed miss, I can give you half price." So this was someone who didn't lack money. Then why did they have to worry about her? Xiao Mu turned a deaf ear to the motley clamor of people vying for business. She directly picked up that dark and skinny boy and went far away. The boy, on the other hand, looked up at Arbor nervously when he heard the crowd's clamor. He was afraid that she would abandon him and let the guy who offered half a spirit coin lead the way for them. Bai Xia and the other two from Siyuan hurried to catch up. When they were some distance away, they wiped their sweat and shouted, "These people are too enthusiastic." They were willing to go to such lengths for one spirit coin? Wasn't this a little too exaggerated? They're all ordinary people. One spirit coin can be exchanged for 1 to 2 days' worth of food, the skinny black boy said softly. Bai Xiao was stunned. Then, she looked at the boy sympathetically. Are those flying, rotting monsters everywhere here? Otherwise, the prices wouldn't be so high. On Siyuan Star, one spirit coin could be exchanged for 100 mystic coins and could buy a lot of resources. It wasn't just 1 or 2 days' worth of food. Bai Xia and her brother, Bai Zhe, couldn't help but shudder when they thought of those ghastly things in front of the arena. They saw with their own eyes a noble lady from another star field being viciously torn apart by a rotting, flying monster. The scene was bloody and terrifying. These things wouldn't show mercy just because you were a prince, princess, or a lady. They looked barbaric and were extremely mobile. Their small eyes emitted a red glow, which made people shudder when they looked at them. Arbor turned his head to look at Bai Xia. He blinked and asked, "Don't tell me you don't have such things on Siyuan?" "No." The three of them said in unison, the brothers and sisters from the other star fields who entered Shuntian Prefecture on the same day as us. It seems that only one star field said that they had seen this kind of thing before. Bai Zhe quickly interjected, but they didn't expect the things in front of the Shuntian Hall's arena to be so powerful. They said that these things seemed to have evolved a lot compared to the ones in their homeworld. "Actually, we don't know what they mean." Bai Xia frowned and said, "Miss Qiao, could it be that there are also such monsters in your star field?" Xiao Mu nodded and lamented inwardly. It seems that Heavenly Fate is not developing his great zombie undertaking in every lower star domain. Instead, he chose a part to develop. Seacone Planet was one of the planets that had been affected. Siyuan Planet, where Bai Xia was located, had yet to be affected. But this didn't guarantee that Siyuan Planet wouldn't have a corpse puppet outbreak in the future. Perhaps Tian Yun's evil hand had already reached out to that ignorant star field, and a disaster was waiting for them in the future. Chapter 1564. These rotting things that can walk are called corpse puppets. Perhaps they will appear in your star field in the future, Arbor said indifferently. Just because they don't appear now doesn't mean they won't appear in the future. These things are indestructible. After leveling up, if the crystal cores in their heads aren't destroyed, they won't die. They won't die, and they won't stop attacking humans. You mean these rotting monsters will appear in our star field in the future? Bai Xia cried out in alarm. Bai Zhe and Ji Feng's expressions were also very unsightly. Then what should we do? Bai Zhe asked with a frown. If you have the means, you might as well send a message to your relatives in your star field. When the time comes, they can also prepare in advance, Arbor said softly. You don't know when Tianyin will make a move, and you don't know if they will let you go. The only thing you can do is to take precautions and minimize the losses as much as possible. Tianyin, are you saying that these rotting corpse puppets are not natural, but man-made? The two siblings cried out anxiously. Why would they do this? What benefits would they get from doing this? We don't know about this yet, but Tianyin created corpse puppets. This is no longer a secret on our Seacone planet. The upper echelons of most of the countries in our star field already know the name of Tianyan. It will probably spread in the future. But I think, Arbor said with a solemn expression, we shouldn't be able to get rid of them in the short term. After all, they hide very well. Sister, then we have to inform father and mother as soon as possible, Baija said hurriedly. Let them know what to do and make preparations early. These monsters are really powerful. If it was a normal person, they wouldn't be able to deal with them at all. I have a handwritten copy here that records the evolution and development process of corpse puppets and their characteristics in detail. It's the usual way to deal with them. Arbor said, if you need it, I can let you make a copy when you enter the city. That's great. Thank you very much, Miss Xiao, Baixia said gratefully. We and the newcomers from other starfields didn't know of the existence of these monsters. That's why we were caught unprepared the moment we arrived at the entrance of Shuntian Prefecture. Baija gritted his teeth. Now that I think about it, if we had known about this monster earlier, we might not have suffered so much. There's no point in thinking about it. Some things have already happened, and we can only face the future, Arbor said calmly. Little guy, where's the land whale you mentioned? How long will it take for it to arrive? My lords, the land whale landing entrance is not far ahead. Please follow me. The skinny, dark-skinned boy led the group out of the market. Not long after, the four of them saw a bustling scene. This place was built like a pier, and in front of it were four giant beasts the size of small hills. From afar, it really looked like a whale in the sea. What was interesting was that these giant beasts had 8 thick and fat short legs under their bodies. This was an eye-opener for everyone. Arbor raised his head and narrowed his eyes. The land whale at the front started moving. Its huge body slid across the ground, and its 8 short legs ran very fast. It's good that it's full. There aren't many seats left. If we miss today, we'll have to wait until tomorrow. I'll see you in the evening. Chapter 1565. Another land whale slowly propped up its 8 short legs and left the landing tunnel. Then, it quickly moved away and disappeared into the horizon in the blink of an eye. Arbor's group of 4 walked forward. An old man who was in charge of directing the land whale was huffing and glaring at a skinny young man who was blocking his way. Get out of here, stinky brat. You've annoyed me for an hour. I told you that you can't reduce the price. Why are you so long-winded? Big brother, please do me a favor. I don't have enough money for the journey. I have to rush back to the academy. Boo-hoo. If I can't make it back today, the students will all be starving. The students in the academy are probably starving to death. They haven't had anything to eat for 3 days. The skinny young man wiped the non-existent tears from the corners of his eyes pitifully and glanced at the old man from the corner of his eyes. Are you the purchasing master of the academy's cafeteria? Which academy are you from? The old man asked. I'm an instructor of the water spirit department from a top-tier academy outside Anka City. I'm not a purchasing master of the cafeteria. The skinny instructor looked at the old man awkwardly. The old man looked at him suspiciously as if he had never heard of the top-tier academy. If you want to go to Anka City, you'll need 2 hours and at least 200 spirit coins for the journey. This is the cheapest one. The skinny instructor of the water spirit department suddenly pounced on the old man and hugged his thigh. Big brother, I don't need a seat. Just give me a place to stand. I only have 5 spirit coins with me. Can you give me a ride? Get out. The old man punched the skinny young man almost immediately. Arbor. The strange thing was that the skinny instructor seemed to have heard of the so-called top-tier academy. Where had he heard of it before? Little friends, do you want to take a ride on our land whale? Let me tell you, our land whale is stable and fast, and it can avoid lightning effectively. Along the way, you can enjoy the beautiful scenery of the thunderous plain. There are only 10 seats left. If you miss it, you'll have to wait until tomorrow. Little friends, do you want to give it a try? Arbor took out a bulging money pouch and grabbed a handful of spirit coins from it. The old man's eyes suddenly lit up. He stretched out his hands to receive the coins, only to see that Arbor had counted 480 spirit coins for him one by one. Arbor then threw the rest of the coins back into the bag. The old man was speechless. He was so excited that he thought the rich girl in front of him would throw all the spirit coins at him. Miss Xiao, let us pay for the travel expenses, Bai Xia said with an embarrassed expression. The little girl had given them so many good things just now. They couldn't let her pay for the travel expenses anymore. Arbor waved his hand carelessly. It's fine. Then he turned around and waved at the little boy who was leading the way. He took out 50 spirit coins and gave them to him. Take it and go back. Meng Mai opened his small mouth in shock. He wanted to say something, but the young lady waved at him and said again, Go back. Meng Mai hurriedly bowed and said, Thank you, Mississippi. She left happily. Arbor kept the money pouch and turned to look at the old man. Where are you going? Ah, please come this way. The old man looked at the young lady with a complicated expression. She actually gave a child who was leading the way 50 spirit coins as a reward. After coming back to his senses, the old man smiled and made an inviting gesture. He led the 4 people to the landing area. Chapter 1566. On the back of this super large land whale, there was a circle made of special materials, and there were 30 chairs inside. Arbor's group of 4 went up the escalator beside the land whale and sat down in a row in 2s and 3s. They saw that the teacher from the top academy hugged the old man's thigh no matter what and kept begging, Please, big brother, give me a ride on the way. It's fine even if I don't have a seat. Get lost. The old man angrily wanted to shake off that teacher, but that guy was like a piece of plaster, sticking to his arm, and he couldn't shake him off. Arbor looked sideways and was slightly speechless. This tutor was so thick-skinned that he wanted to use 5 spirit coins to exchange for a ride with someone else. If this precedent was set, there would definitely be many thick-skinned people who would beg the old man to give them a ride. It was obvious that the old man would definitely not agree. Otherwise, how would he do his business in the future? Little brother, I beg you to let me go. The old man helplessly pulled that teacher away and waved his hand. The price of a land whale is set by the town guards. I also beg you, little brother, this is not something I could decide. What kind of joke was this? He finally took over such a lucrative job from the Shuntian Prefecture's prefecture master. Of course, he couldn't mess things up. His price was not high at all. Apart from the cost of renting these land whales and feeding them, he still needed to hand over half of the income to the main prefecture. In the end, he calculated that there was not much income left. It was already good enough that he could have 10 or 20% of the income. Therefore, that damn teacher, when he said that he would give him a ride for 5 spirit coins, he wished he could slap him to death. Big brother, please reconsider. The short teacher cried out pitifully. The old man couldn't bear it anymore and turned back to roar at him, Get lost now in the same way you came in the first place. Put up lanterns and decorations and get lost. That full of energy word, get lost, shocked the guests on the back of the land whale, and they all looked at the old man in shock. I was miserable when I came in the first place. When I crossed the thunderous plain by myself, I was struck by lightning and was in a terrible state. The corners of Bai Xia's mouth twitched. She looked speechlessly at the shameless instructor. Was he really a teacher of some academy? However, he had never heard of a top-notch academy. I've only heard of Shuntian Prefecture's 4 great academies, Sun, Moon, Star, and Chun. Bai Xia said in a small voice. I've never heard of any top academies. I seem to have heard of it somewhere before. The little fellow muttered to himself. Ah, is that so? White Cloud was stunned. She turned to look at Arbor and asked, Where have I heard of it? No. Arbor wanted to say, I don't remember, but his eyes suddenly fell on the green pine and cypress jade bracelet on his left wrist. A thought suddenly flashed through his mind. Top academy? A top-notch academy? Could it be the top academy that Murong Sun mentioned? Arbor turned to look at the rascally short teacher. He couldn't associate it with the top academy Murong Sun mentioned. Chapter 1567. Could it be the top-notch academy that Murong Sun mentioned in her letter? Arbor had a question mark on this academy in his mind. No matter how he looked at it, he felt like that instructor was a scoundrel. What kind of students could this kind of instructor teach? While he was pondering, a group of 7 people quickly arrived in front of the land whale under the lead of a fat Andy. The leader waved at the elderly person in charge and said, 7 seats. Thank you. Bai Shuang whispered to Arbor. From the looks of it, they seem to have just come out of the lower star domain's passageway. Fuck. The other party's luck was just that good. They only came out of the passageway after they painstakingly dealt with the zombies and the arena. They did not need to fight to the death against those ugly zombies like they did. Bai Xia's gaze roamed over those 7 people. There were 5 men and 2 women in the group. 2 of them had outstanding looks, and the man who spoke was rather handsome. The other was a woman who was in the center like the moon, surrounded by a myriad of stars. Her beautiful eyes were brimming with pride as she swept her gaze over everyone. Her expression was like that of a lofty queen patrolling the grounds. When her gaze landed on Arbor, the woman's gaze clearly turned sluggish, and her eyes seemed to be dyed with a trace of disbelief. There was actually such an exquisite and luxurious person in this world who was like a jade carving. The woman lamented in her heart, and her scrutinizing gaze roamed back and forth over Arbor's body. There was a faint trace of displeasure in her expression. Her skin was so delicate that it could be broken with a blow, and her facial features were peerlessly exquisite. She could not pick out any flaws at all. This caused a trace of discomfort to sweep through the woman's heart. In their star domain, she had always been known as the star domain's #1 beauty. She did not expect to meet a girl who was even more attractive than her on the first day she came to Shuntian Prefecture. This caused her to be extremely displeased. The leader did not notice the woman's abnormal mood. At this time, he had already walked up to the elderly person and asked again in a clear voice, "Uncle, we need 7 seats." "Thank you." The old man awkwardly looked at the seat beside him, then turned to look at the 7 men and women. "Sorry, as you can see, there are only 6 seats left." "6? Then let them give up one." The one who spoke was a woman with an ordinary appearance. She glanced at Xiao Mu and the others who were sitting on the side as she spoke aloofly. Bai Xia saw their gazes fall on her and Arbor, and curled her lips in boredom. Baizha couldn't help but ask coldly, "Manager, didn't you say that we can leave as soon as all the seats are taken? What are you waiting for? Our time is very precious." The old man smiled apologetically. "We're about to leave. Everyone, please get ready. This young master. I only have 6 seats here. Look, do you want to buy 6 tickets? Or you can leave tomorrow." "Tomorrow?" The #1 beauty of the star field screamed indignantly. "I don't want to stay in this damn place for even one more day." He had to leave immediately. "I want to go to the city. The closest city to here is Jilu City." "Mister, we're heading there. I'll have to trouble you to arrange the seats. It doesn't matter if we have to pay a little more." The leader of the group was polite in both his words and the way he conducted himself. Chapter 1568. It was just that the few teammates behind him looked a bit arrogant. Especially that ordinary-looking girl. After looking around, she pointed at the short instructor from the top academy and said, "You, give up your seat. How about I give you double the price?" The short instructor hesitated for a second and then pretended to shake his head. "That won't do. I'm in a hurry to go back and cook for my students. They're starving to death." Arbor really wanted to ask this instructor, "Do you have a seat? How can you continue with such a coherent sentence?" The ordinary-looking girl took out a bulging money bag and casually threw it to the short instructor. "There are 500 spirit coins here. Give up your seat to us." "Okay." The short instructor replied in an unusually loud voice and then waved his paw at the old man. "Big brother, then I'll go first. Actually, it's nothing to be struck by lightning all the way. It's healthier to be struck by lightning. It's pretty good." After the instructor finished speaking, he jumped off the land whale without looking back and really rushed towards the thunderous plane alone. Soon, everyone heard the sound of thunder not far away. It seemed that the instructor had activated the heavenly thunder mode after entering the thunderous plane, but Arbor only felt that the heavenly thunder was rolling. That guy looked unreliable and greedy. It seemed that he was very different from the instructor from the top academy in her mind. The instructor from the top academy in the little girl's mind had a sage-like demeanor with one hand behind his back. He stood on the blazing lava mountain range and looked up at the night sky dotted with cold stars. But this cheating instructor in front of her seemed to be completely different from that lofty image. He was just a swindler. Okay, we have 7 seats now. The ordinary-looking girl turned her head and roared at the old man, who was stunned on the spot. Arrange the seats. Why are you standing there in a daze? The old man was probably so angry that his lips were trembling. He calmed down and said in a low voice, Miss, you just gave that instructor from the top academy a big bag of spirit coins, but it's completely useless. He's a swindler. He didn't buy a seat at all. You gave him money, but what can he do? The ordinary-looking girl was dumbfounded. After a few seconds, she couldn't help but scold. You damn old man, why didn't you say so earlier? You waited for him to leave before telling me this? The old man also had an aggrieved expression. Just now, Miss moved extremely fast and threw a money bag to that person. It's too late for me to stop you. The old man still felt extremely aggrieved. Was there anything more ridiculous than this? That instructor from the top academy. How could he openly reach out and take the money bag? It really made people speechless. I don't care. You have a seat, the girl said unyieldingly. Tian. The captain frowned slightly. You give up your seat. The woman's. Then, she pointed at Arbor and said, You, give up your seat. Arbor's gaze sharpened. Before she could react, the 7-person team's leader quickly reached out and stopped the girl. He nodded at Arbor and said, I'm sorry, little girl. It's my team member who acted abruptly. I'm going to sleep. I'll make up for it tomorrow morning. Chapter 1569. If you know that your team members are unreliable, then you should take good care of them. Don't let them go around biting people. Bai Xia rolled her eyes in annoyance. The leader of the 7-man team, Su Hao, cupped his hands apologetically at Bai Xia and the others. He then turned to the ordinary-looking woman and said, Fourth princess, how about we set off together tomorrow? That's right. The old man heaved a sigh of relief and smiled. As long as you make an appointment, there will definitely be seats available tomorrow. No way. Fourth princess Lu Tian said angrily. Why should I go tomorrow? It's not like I can't afford it. Bai Xia curled her lips and mocked softly. So you're a princess from some country. No wonder you're so extravagant and ostentatious. But she was the princess of Siyuan Star's Baizi country. In Shantian Prefecture, there was no distinction between princess and prince. She was just a newcomer to Shantian Prefecture. She still had to behave herself. What a joke. Princess Lu Tian was acting so arrogant and despotic even before she knew the situation, throwing money everywhere. If she met an expert with a bad temper, this Princess Lu Tian would suffer. Another beautiful woman frowned slightly and warned the princess in a soft voice. Lu Tian, you just squandered 500 spirit coins. The spirit coins we have left won't be enough for you to squander for a month. It was quite difficult to gather so many spirit coins in the lower star fields. Only this princess was doted on by the great king. That was why she was given so much for travel expenses. However, all in all, she only had 20 to 30,000 spirit coins. If she used them sparingly, she would be able to last until she entered the academy. If she squandered like this, no amount of money would be enough for her. Chen Hanyu, how dare you? Fourth Princess Lu Tian angrily rebuked and glared at the beautiful woman. What? You just left Hanyuan Star, and your true colors are already revealed? You don't even address me as your highness anymore? When Chen Hanyu was on Hanyuan Star, she was often bullied by Fourth Princess Lu Tian. She didn't expect that Lu Tian would dare to rebuke her in front of so many people in Shantian Prefecture. She was immediately enraged. It could be said that Lu Tian did not have any good feelings towards beautiful women. Right now, her ordinary face was filled with anger, causing Chen Hanyu to be slightly startled. She was just about to bow her head and admit defeat. An iron arm suddenly stretched out in front of Chen Hanyu, revealing a protector stance. The person who came was a young man with a square face. When he saw Chen Hanyu's lowered eyes and aggrieved expression, he glared at Lu Tian and said, You better watch out, Lu Tian. Do you think this is still Hanyuan Star? Make sure that this is Shantian Prefecture. Once we're here, we'll start from scratch. There's no such thing as a princess. Prince Consort, you. Lu Tiantian's eyes immediately turned red from anger. Bai Xia and the others were sitting at the side. Their eyelids twitched as they watched. It turned out that this square-faced young man was the prince consort of the fourth princess, Lu Tiantian. But why was the prince consort acting like he was protecting Chen Hanyu? The leader of the seven-man team, Su Hao, quickly stepped forward to smooth things over. All right, Su Bang, Chen Hanyu. We're all on the same team, so let's not quarrel. If there are no objections, we will go down first and leave the Thunderous Plain a day later. Chapter 1570. Chen Hanyu had a reluctant look on her face. Fourth Princess Lu Tiantian was even more furious. Seeing that this matter was going to continue, everyone could only wait for them here. In the seven-man team, a male member suddenly said, "Leader, why don't I stay here alone? You guys can go to the nearby city first." When the elder heard this, he hurriedly nodded and said, That's good. Su Hao hesitated for a moment. Will you be okay going alone? The male member smiled and shook his head. What problem can there be? Leader, don't worry. I'll just meet you guys at Jilu City a day later. The princess's husband and Miss Chan and the team were so difficult to deal with. There was no need to make things difficult for the leader alone, the male member thought. Su Hao patted the male member's shoulder and left him a small bag of spirit coins. Then be careful. We'll wait for you at the city gate tomorrow. Okay. The elder hurriedly invited Su Hao and the rest to sit down. When he walked down from the land whale, he instructed everyone to sit down later. Don't get up and look around. Otherwise, you'll be jolted down by the land whale. With that, he got off the land whale. It was the first time for most of the people here to ride such a large mount. There was a trace of curiosity on their faces, and they were a little excited. Suddenly, the land whale jolted slightly. Everyone gasped and hurriedly grabbed onto the armchairs on both sides. The view in front of them slowly widened. The land whale began to draw a long tunnel and quickly ran towards the thunderous plain. Xiaomu stuck out her small head and looked left and right. There was a vast plain in front of him. He couldn't see the end of it. This land whale is too stable. Bai Xia smiled and said, It's not bumpy at all. I heard that the thunderous plain is more than 100 miles long, and there isn't a single flying beast in the sky. Of course, you'll know when you reach the center of the thunderous plain. There are crisscrossing lightning. If a flying beast goes there rashly, it will definitely be struck into pieces. The thunderous plains stretched as far as the eye could see. Everyone could only see a small half of the red sun on the distant horizon. Only a shallow outline could be seen. At this time, it was already dusk. At this speed, they would definitely reach Jilu City before nightfall. We've entered the thunderous area. Everyone, be careful. A worker sitting cross-legged on the land whale's head reminded them faintly. Everyone only heard a loud rumbling sound. Sure enough, a bolt of lightning accompanied by purple-red lightning struck the thunderclap plains. Everyone felt that the lightning bolt was only a hair's breadth away from the land whale's head. They were all secretly shocked. The land whale, on the other hand, was like a lightning rod. It leaped forward and shuttled through the lightning bolts. Even if a small part of the lightning bolts landed on its body, it did not seem to feel anything due to its thick skin. Bai Xia broke out in a cold sweat. She only relaxed after watching it run for a while. She turned to look at the expressionless little stoic and said, This land whale should be a veteran of the thunderous plains, so there shouldn't be any problems. Xiaomu nodded. Her large eyes curiously looked left and right as she watched the bolts of lightning pounce on the ground with frightening might. Why are there so many lightning bolts here? Hey, quickly look. Isn't there a person in front? Catching up on yesterday's 2 chapters. Chapter 1571. Baiji's shout attracted everyone's attention. Suddenly, everyone was struck by lightning, charred on the outside and tender on the inside. At the far end of the thunderous plains horizon, a short man was racing with a lightning. With a roll, he quickly dodged a bolt of lightning. Then he suddenly jumped up. His movements were vigorous and brave. He rolled again and rolled again. Roll, roll, roll. Roll. The arbor looked at this funny instructor and couldn't help but twitch his mouth. Bai Xia couldn't hold it anymore. She slapped her thigh and laughed. Oh my God, am I seeing things? At this moment, more than half of the 30 passengers on the land whale were laughing too. You're not seeing things. Ji Feng held back his laughter and said, that instructor is being struck by lightning. Strictly speaking, that idiotic teacher from the water spirit faculty was pretty good. However, his appearance was extremely shocking. Look, he has a spiritual armor helmet on his head. Since he can generate spiritual armor, it means that this instructor's cultivation level is quite high. Yeah, I heard that only those who can sense spiritual essence at least at level 5 and above can generate partial spiritual armor. Arbor's gaze stopped on the funny instructor's head. He saw that he was wearing a blue big helmet on his head. It wasn't really a helmet because its shape was too weird. It looked like a big wooden bowl that monks used to beg alms was upside down on his head. When the lightning struck, it went straight for the wooden bowl on his head. Crack! The lightning struck down together with the lightning. The short instructor nimbly rolled on the ground and ran forward with the wooden bowl spiritual armor on his head. Crack! 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 Thunderclaps fell one after another. The short man dodged dozens of lightning bolts, but there were still a few that struck his head. Thus, when a bolt of lightning as thick as the mouth of a bowl came crashing down with a boom, the spiritual armor that the short instructor was wearing was unfortunately smashed into pieces. Everyone saw that the hair on his head was sizzling and smoking. When he turned around, his face was char-black. He put one hand on his waist and pointed at the sky, cursing, "That's enough." Boom! The thunderous plane didn't care whether he was cursing or not. Another lightning bolt struck down. The short instructor pulled back his legs and rolled on the ground like a gourd, rolling to the front. Seeing this, Bai Xia's mouth twitched. I think this instructor rolled all the way across the thunderous plane. Xiaomu looked at this unreliable water spirit faculty instructor from a top-notch academy and made a decision in her mind. She wouldn't search for this top-notch academy for the time being. She would wait for Situ, Yi, and the others to rendezvous in Jilu City before making further plans. With such an unreliable instructor, he felt that this school wasn't that great. The land whale ran past the tutor steadily. A certain instructor who was being struck by lightning turned his head and saw land whale's huge body. He hurriedly tried to catch up to land whale. Hey, young people, can you give me a hand? Hey, oi. Luke Daijing ran very fast. Within a short moment, he had already disappeared from Ji Hao's side. The instructor felt his heart ache. He raised his hand and touched his chest. He said sadly, "Heavens, these young people don't know how to respect their teachers. How dare they treat me like this?" Seeing that another bolt of lightning was about to strike down, the instructor hurriedly ran forward. Chapter 1572. At dusk, the group arrived at the gate of Jilu City. The city was huge. The walls were built with huge beige rocks. The city gate alone was hundreds of feet high. The people standing under the city gate looked very small. When Arbor and Bai Xia arrived at the gate of Jilu City, they happened to run into a traffic control. A group of people lined up outside the city gate. There were 2 rows of energetic guards with long spears in their hands. They looked like they were waiting for someone important to pass through. Bai Xia couldn't help but pull on a passerby and asked softly, "Sister, can I ask you something? What's everyone doing here? Why are you all stopped at the gate? Look at how tired you are. You must have come from afar to enter the city." The middle-aged woman that Bai Xia called sister smiled at Bai Xia. "Actually, it's not like this usually. But today, I heard that the beautiful fairy from the Palace of Cold Blood is visiting. City Lord Hua will welcome them personally, so we can't pass for now. Everything will be fine after the beautiful fairy and her group pass by." Li Ren, a girl's voice came from behind Bai Xia. It was a round-faced girl who was sitting on the same land whale as them. She was about the same age as Arbor. Her cheeks were round and chubby, and her body was a little round. At this moment, the little girl was biting her finger and drooling with a strange expression. Xiao Mu turned around to look at her. Based on her nature of understanding foodies, she immediately understood that this round-faced little girl was not talking about some beauty, but chestnut kernel. Hey, make way, make way, make way. The short instructor, with his pitch-black face, squeezed his way through the crowd and finally managed to squeeze behind Xiao Mu and the others with great difficulty. Baizha glanced at him and blocked him with his arm. Why are you squeezing? Hey, young man, have a better attitude. The short man glared at Baizha angrily and looked around the city gate. Why did you stop all of them here? Why aren't you letting anyone in? No one cared about him. On the other hand, the fourth princess, Lu Tiantian, who had given him 500 spirit coins to buy a seat, was furious. She glared at the instructor and shouted, "How dare you show up in front of me?" The short tutor turned around to look at her. His face was dark. Hey, why wouldn't I dare to appear in front of you? Little girl, be more polite when you speak. You liar. Lu Tiantian was so angry that he wanted to rush over and beat him up. However, it was crowded at this moment. Her vigorous movement immediately affected many people around her. Some of the people who were squeezed so tightly that they couldn't breathe hurriedly shouted, "What are you doing? What are you doing? Don't push." The short mentor put his hands in front of him and made a defensive posture. When he saw that Lu Tiantian couldn't squeeze through, he immediately grinned and said, Come here if you have the guts. How audacious. How dare you be so rude to your teacher? If someone like you were to enter our top academy, you would definitely be chased out within 3 days. Who the hell wants to enter your stupid academy? Lu Tiantian was furious. Instead of entering your unknown academy, why don't you work hard and try to enter one of the 4 great academies of the Sun-Moon Star Union? Everyone was on Lu Tiantian's side. They nodded and looked at the short tutor with disdain. A bunch of frogs in a well. What do you know? Chapter 1573. Back then, when our top-notch academy rose to prominence, who knows where those 4 great academies of sun, moon, and stars that you speak of were? The short instructor harumphed. I'm telling you, don't be unconvinced. Our top-notch academy is extremely famous in the entire 6 prefectures continent. Not only Shuntian Prefecture, even the neighboring Ani Prefecture, Poland Prefecture, and so on all greatly admire our top-notch academy. Little children like you who just entered Shuntian Prefecture, I'll say this without boasting. It's best if you all come to our top-notch academy to study for half a year. Like those lousy academies of sun, moon, and stars, they only have a good reputation. In reality, they simply can't teach anything practical. They're all a bunch of gaudy sissies. What can they do? Everyone looked at each other in dismay. That's right, especially for little girls like you who are young and talented. You're the most suitable to come to our top-notch academy. The short instructor suddenly changed his target and pointed at Arbor and the round-faced foodie girl beside her. Do you want to give it a try and enroll at our academy? Our academy enrolls students at the end of July every year, and classes begin at the beginning of August. We have all 5 spiritual elements. No matter what you want to learn, there are outstanding instructors like me who will personally teach you one-on-one. Counting the time, there are only about 10 days left for you to prepare. How about it? Do you have the confidence to join our top-notch academy? The round-faced little girl dazedly glanced at the short instructor and shook her head. Never thought about it. Nah, how could you not think about it? It's already not bad for this little stoic-faced girl beside you. I can tell at a glance that she's a naturally intelligent person of few words. She's the most suitable to study at our academy. As he spoke, the short instructor pulled out a crumpled and tattered piece of paper from his pocket and stuffed it into the little stoic's hand without allowing her to object. A smile comparable to a blooming chrysanthemum on his pitch-black face. The test is on July 28th. As long as you pass our academy's test, you'll be able to smoothly join our top-notch academy. Little girl, I have high hopes for you. You can do it. Bai Xia was stupefied as she listened on the side. She didn't understand. It was clearly Lu Tiantian who wanted to settle scores with the short instructor in the beginning. How to become the short instructor accepting Miss Xiao as a student and entering some top-notch academy in the end? Wasn't the jump a little too big? Arbor was expressionless. He lowered his head and looked at the crumpled paper in his hand. He reached out his small hand and slapped the paper on the short mentor's face. Not interested. Everyone was speechless. The short mentor looked at her with a pained expression and said, "Little fellow, think about it again. I am Zhou Danjin, an instructor of the Water Spirit faculty in a top academy." The brat was about to continue talking when he heard a cheer coming from the city gate. "Beautiful fairy is here." The loud cheers of the poor immediately interrupted the short man's words. Everyone pushed each other and squeezed forward curiously, wanting to see what this beautiful fairy from the Palace of Cold Blood looked like. A long-haired cow with snow-white hooves was pulling a chariot made of black gold towards the main gate of Julu City. The city gates opened, and the city lord, Hua Qingyu, personally came out to welcome them. His snow-white robe made him look as noble as an orchid tree. Chapter 1574. The carriage stopped at the city gate. Hua Qingyu smiled and walked forward. He cupped his hands and bowed. "The beautiful fairy from the Palace of Cold Blood has graced us with your presence." Hua Qingyu greets the beautiful fairy. There was no movement in the carriage for a moment. Suddenly, a fragrant wind blew in their faces. A snow-white figure shot out of the carriage like lightning. Her long robe fluttered across the roof of the carriage. Everyone focused their eyes and saw a woman in snow-white clothes. She was sitting cross-legged on the roof of the carriage. Her face was full of solemnity and solemnity. Bai Xia and Arbor only felt that the beautiful fairy in front of them purposely made herself look ethereal. She was really pretentious. What kind of fairy is this? Even the city lord has to come out to welcome her? Bai Xia couldn't help but mutter softly. The middle-aged woman who spoke earlier suddenly rolled her eyes. "What do you know? The wife of the current city lord of Shuntian Prefecture is the palace master of the Palace of Cold Blood. There are 5 fairies under the city lord's wife. This beautiful fairy is one of them. Her cultivation has reached level 7 spiritual master. She is very powerful. The Palace of Cold Blood comes once every 3 months. In the middle of the month, the city lord will order them to distribute cultivation resources. These things are related to the future of the city. Of course, they can't be careless. Among the resources, there are materials, spiritual medicine, cultivation methods, and everything else. If you have a good relationship with the fairies of the Palace of Cold Blood, you might be able to open a back door and get more benefits. No wonder City Lord Hua is acting like this." Bai Xia heard this and cast a curious look at the beautiful fairy. Her gaze moved back and forth on her face. However, the beautiful fairy suddenly glanced back in Bai Xia's direction. This cold glance made Bai Xia's heart skip a beat, and she couldn't help but be shocked. She stared at me so rudely. "We're the city guards. Go, gouge your eyes out for this fairy." Bai Xia's eyes widened. She couldn't believe what she heard. What kind of fairy was this? How could she be so vicious? She just looked at her curiously and ordered the city guards to dig her eyes out. Who was she to not allow others to look at her? 2 afterimages came over. The 2 town guards looked cold and arrogant. They were about to subdue Bai Xia. "Sister." Baizhu was shocked and immediately attacked the 2 guards at the same time with G-Phone. The 2 profound energies forced the mansion guard to take a few steps back. The crowd that was almost affected immediately let out a burst of screams. "You're all courting death." The beautiful fairy leisurely sat on the roof of the carriage, her beautiful eyes shooting out a cold light. She waved her wide white sleeves, and 2 streams of yellow light shot out from them, heading straight for Baizhu and G-Phone. Bang! A faint sound vibrated in the air. Just as the 2 immobilization talismans were about to attach themselves to Baizhu and G-Phone, Xiao Mu creased her brows and suddenly caught the 2 blue talismans between her fingers. In just a moment, the 2 blue talismans were crushed into powder in her hands and dissipated with the wind. Baizhu and G-Phone, who were not affected by the body-securing talisman, managed to land a palm strike on the 2 town mansion guards, knocking them back a few steps. The beautiful fairy's eyes immediately narrowed. A pair of cold eyes, emitting a cold light, stared at Arbor and said word by word, "You dare to destroy my body-securing talisman? Do you know what the death penalty is?" Chapter 1575. She threatened me. Cut off her mouth. Arbor suddenly said coldly. A small white snake twisted its delicate body and abruptly leaped up from Xiao Mu's shoulder. In the blink of an eye, it transformed into a giant python and opened its mouth to bite at the beautiful fairy on top of the carriage's roof. The fairy was shocked. In order to avoid the sudden appearance of the giant snake, her body suddenly flipped backward and rolled down from the roof of the carriage. At this time, she couldn't care less about her image. She only felt that if she didn't avoid it quickly, the snake's huge mouth could tear her head off with a crack. Terrifying. Where did this giant python come from? Why did it suddenly appear at the city gate? The beautiful fairy didn't have time to think about it. After a crisp crack sound, a ferocious snake head suddenly forced its way through the carriage she was sitting in. The entire carriage seemed to be wrapped around the snake's body. The giant snake slithered out of the carriage. Its eyes were extremely fierce, and it once again spat out a mouthful of black mist at the beautiful fairy. "Young lady, please show mercy." Hua Qingyu, who was watching from the side, was shocked and hurriedly scolded her. Unexpectedly, it would have been better if he hadn't scolded her. As soon as he scolded her, the little fellow's fierce eyes looked at him. When the two of them looked at each other, Hua Qingyu only felt his heart skip a beat. His whole body was stunned. This pair of ice bead-like eyes was really too cold. It made his whole body tremble involuntarily, as if he had fallen into an ice cellar. "Eat her." Arbor's expression was cold as he issued a ruthless order. The small white snake roared and twisted its head, biting toward the beautiful fairy's head. Crack! The four walls of the carriage were bitten into pieces by the small white snake. The broken wood shavings were like powder flying in the air. The few long-haired cows were already scared out of their wits. All of them crouched on the ground, not daring to move at all. The beautiful fairy reacted and continuously stretched out the defensive talismans. However, these defensive talismans were like tofu. Under the black mist of the great void netherworld snake, they were broken inch by inch. "Miss, please be merciful." "That's enough." Hua Qingyu braced himself. He tapped the ground with the tip of his foot and suddenly flew towards the beautiful fairy. Arbor's eyes suddenly turned cold. In the blink of an eye, 5 blue talismans appeared in his hand. 5 fire talismans were thrown at Hua Qingyu at the same time. From the moment the talisman was activated to the moment the fire spirit exploded, the entire city gate was illuminated by a series of flames. Almost everyone was stunned. Boom! The fire spirit talisman blasted a hole in the city gate. Rubble fell from the sky, and Hua Qingyu's expression changed. "You!" Arbor frowned. Suddenly, he took out 5 fire talismans and threw them all down. Boom! 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 Explosions filled the entire city gate. The overflowing power of the fire talisman pushed down the lawn in front of the door, revealing the bare soil inside. The onlookers all scowled miserably and retreated one after another, fearing that they would be implicated. Fortunately, the fire spirit talisman only attacked Hua Qingyu. In order to prevent Hua Qingyu from getting close to the beautiful fairy to help, Arbor threw out 10 fire spirit talismans. Seeing Hua Qingyu's expression change slightly, he still didn't give up and flew towards the beautiful fairy. Arbor's eyes sharpened. He suddenly took out a handful of 50 fire spirit talismans. Chapter 1576. Hua Qingyu's eyelids kept twitching, and his heart also thumped nonstop. It couldn't be, right? The 50 fire spirit talismans simultaneously flew up and circled around the city gate before flying toward Hua Qingyu. Hua Qingyu's eyebrows could almost squash a fly to death, and he couldn't help but roar, Don't! Please stop my great aunt." Boom, 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 boom. Everyone was stupefied. The violent and explosive sound rapidly attracted all the cultivators in the city. They all rushed towards the city gate in unison. Everyone had a bad premonition in their hearts. Zombies were attacking the city. Zombies were attacking the city. Cough, 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 cough. Hua Qingyu reached out to brush away the thick smoke in front of him. His face went from shock to numbness, and now calmness. A little girl from the lower star field who looked like she was only 14 or 15 years old was so extravagant. She casually threw out a handful of fire spirit talismans, and her net worth could easily surpass that of a city lord like him. How could he endure this? The little stoic glanced coldly at City Lord Hua and suddenly raised her hand. Just as City Lord Hua's eyelids twitched wildly, she abruptly fished out a large handful of fire spirit talismans. City Lord Hua glanced over, and he basically couldn't count how many talismans there were. Don't move. City Lord Hua suddenly screamed with a black face. Calm down, my great aunt, calm down. I won't move, and you also won't move if I don't move. City Lord Hua's originally handsome face was blackened by the smoke emitted from the explosion of the fire spirit talismans in front of him. At the same time, without City Lord Hua's obstruction and help, the little white snake's tail suddenly coiled around the beautiful fairy. Without a second word, it slapped her face down onto the ground. Watching you only felt his teeth ache and balls ache. When he saw the large snake coiling the beautiful fairy up from the shallow pit, he hastily glanced at her and then silently mourned for her in his heart. It was too tragic. Her face was practically flattened by the large snake's slap. Bleeding from the forehead, nose, and mouth was no longer a big deal. The most important thing was that the beautiful fairy's nose was probably crooked and the bridge of her nose was slanted to one side. His mouth was also completely broken, and there were many broken teeth in his mouth falling to the ground. Bai Xia, who was standing at the side, was also scared silly. She looked at the scene in front of her in a daze and secretly swallowed her saliva. Then she swallowed again. She stole a glance at Miss Qiao and pursed her lips. Then she shifted her gaze to the extremely miserable, beautiful fairy. The beautiful fairy, who had arrogantly wanted to dig out her eyes just a moment ago, was now like a dead fish on the verge of death. The short instructor, Zhou Danjin, suddenly slapped his thigh and shouted joyfully, "Amazing! This student, may I know your name? Our top academy welcomes you with open arms." This mentor felt like he was from some evil cult, and he was trying to recruit people into his cult. "I said I'm not interested," Arbor said coldly. It's fine. Even if you're not interested, you can still cultivate your interest. No matter if it's towards people, things, or the academy. If you're not interested in the beginning, it doesn't mean that you won't be interested in the future." Xiao Mu completely ignored this person's nonsensical rambling and directly turned to walk towards the city gate. At this moment, because of the fire talisman, the city gate was filled with burning bonfires. When walking, one had to be extra careful. Chapter 1577. However, these talisman fires were completely useless against her. Walking through the bonfire, Arbor strode forward and headed into the city with a cold expression. Just as the city guards were about to reach out to stop her, they heard Hua Qingyu shout from behind, "Let her go! Let her go! Let her go! Hey, make way, make way, make way!" Instructor Zhou Danjin chuckled and followed Arbor into the city. What a joke! If they didn't leave now, when would they? If they entered the city alone later, wouldn't they have to pay a spirit coin entrance fee? "Sister, let's go quickly too." Baizha hastily tugged at Bai Xia, and the two siblings, along with Ji Feng, also hastily followed. Zhou Danjin stretched as soon as he entered the city, and his dark face was covered in a joyful smile. Wah! He really made a killing on this trip. Not only did he buy food at the small market outside the Thunderclap Plain that was nearly half the price of the food in Anka City, but he didn't even spend a single spirit coin on a round trip, earning 500 spirit coins for free. These 500 spirit coins were finally enough for the academy to spend for a while. This was a windfall. If the vice president knew that he was so capable, he would definitely praise him greatly. Zhou Danjin grinned at the thought of this happy occasion. When he looked up, he saw that the little girl's figure was already far away. He hastily chased after her and stuck to the little stoic like a plaster, saying, "Hey, stoic-faced little miss, let's discuss something. I see that you're also new to Shuntian Prefecture. You definitely aren't familiar with this place. How about this? You can study at our top-notch academy for half a year. By then, you'll already be familiar with Shuntian Prefecture. Hey, little stoic, hey." Before Zhou Danjin could finish speaking, he saw a green vine shoot out of the little girl's hand and wrap around the roof with a whoosh. With a slight push of her wrist, her body lightened, and she immediately rose from the ground, pulling the green vine to the roof. After 2 leaps, she had completely disappeared. Miss Xiao. Bai Xia chased after her, but saw that her figure had already disappeared. She involuntarily stomped her feet in frustration and turned to glare at Zhou Danjin. It's all your fault. You scared her away. I originally planned to properly entertain Miss Xiao after entering the city. The little stoic's surname is Xiao. Zhou Danjin rubbed his black chin and rolled his eyes. Aren't you guys on the same side? I can't be bothered with you. Bai Xia angrily rolled her eyes at him and called her brother and fiancé to leave. Young people nowadays all have such bad tempers, Zhou Danjin muttered. He carefully glanced in the direction the little stoic disappeared in and cracked a smile. I have a feeling that we will meet again in the future. Currently, in the longevity palace of the Mo Kingdom on Seacombe Planet, Fenggu happily ran in with a potted jasper begonia in full bloom. Empress Dowager, it's a joyous occasion. Look, this jasper begonia has come to life. The people from the Eastern Palace brought it over. They said that before the Crown Princess left, she told the gardener to take care of it for a few more days and send it to the Empress Dowager when the flowers are ready. Look, the Crown Prince Consort has people take care of it so well. She can even save the dying jasper begonia. The Crown Princess is truly resourceful. The Empress Dowager nodded with a smile and reached out to gently stroke the green leaves of the jasper begonia. She said with a gratified expression, "The little Crown Princess is telling Aijia that there is hope in life and that one cannot easily give up." Chapter 1578. She didn't know when senior brother Situ and the rest would arrive at Jilu City. Xiao Mu sat inside a restaurant called Joy Pavilion and ordered a single meal, a bowl of egg noodles, a meat bun, and a bowl of egg floss and vegetable soup. Just this bit of food cost her 5 spirit coins. It's really expensive. However, she didn't feel the pinch of spending other people's money. She could just spend it. 300,000 spirit coins was enough for her to spend for a while. It was said that the expenses in this city were very high, and there was a monthly poll tax. It didn't mean that one could sit back and relax after paying 1 spirit coin to enter the city. At the beginning of the month, one would have to go to Babu Plaza and pay for the residence fee. Otherwise, if it was found that one's residence permit had expired, one could be punished to the point of bankruptcy or be expelled from the city, never to enter Jilu City again. The residence fee was 1 spirit coin per month, and one wouldn't be refunded if one didn't stay for a month. When Arbor came in, she didn't pay any spirit coins, so she naturally didn't have a residence permit or anything like that. However, she would only stay in the city for a few days, so there shouldn't be any problems. She just had to wait for senior brother Sidhu and the rest to arrive before discussing where to go. Ding ding. The wind chimes at the entrance of Joy Pavilion rang, and the crisp sound rippled in the wind. Xiao Mu had just picked up some noodles with her chopsticks, but before she could put it in her mouth, she saw someone jogging cheerfully to her side and patting her back with their small paws. "Hey, it's you." Xiao Mu turned her head to look and saw a small round face appear in front of her. She had a round face and round eyes. The little girl was about the same age as her, but her eyes were fixed on the noodles in her bowl. She smacked her lips subconsciously. Arbor's mouth twitched. She recognized that this child was the round-faced little girl who rode the land whale with her. "Shopkeeper, another bowl of egg noodles." "Okay, sit down and eat together." Arbor pointed to a seat at the side. No need, no need. I spent 3 months' worth of food on the land whale. I don't have any money to eat for the next 3 months. Arbor's small hand that was holding the chopsticks paused, and he said expressionlessly, "I'll treat you. Sit down." "How can I accept that? How about this? You finish the noodles, and I'll drink the rest of your soup." As the little girl spoke, she saw a snake's head almost buried in the bowl of vegetable soup. Hearing her words, the snake raised its head slightly and glanced at her with its big, watery eyes. Then it quickly lowered its head and used its small, wriggling body to wrap around its soup bowl, sucking all the soup into its mouth. Arbor, the round-faced girl laughed awkwardly and said, "Ha, ha, your little white snake is so cute. What the hell?" A cold-blooded snake actually knew how to drink soup. Then, she seemed to have thought of something, and her little face instantly froze. What cute little white snake. Previously at the city gate, the giant snake had slapped the beautiful fairy into a flat face with its tail. She had seen it with her own eyes. How is she cute? She's not cute at all. She's even a little cruel. "Miss, a bowl of egg noodles is here. It's 3 spirit coins. Miss, please pay first." The shopkeeper was all smiles as he personally ran over to bring the bowl of noodles over. What? A bowl of egg noodles actually costs 3 spirit coins? Why don't you go rob a bank? The shopkeeper's face immediately stiffened. "Miss, the store clearly states the price." Chapter 1579. As she spoke, she raised her hand and pointed at the signboard in front of them. It was clearly written on the signboard. A bowl of egg noodles cost 3 spirit coins, a meat bun cost 1 spirit coin, and a bowl of vegetable soup cost 1 spirit coin. If one wanted to eat pure meat noodles, it would cost 5 spirit coins per bowl. Wow, your shop is so expensive. The round-faced girl could not help but exclaim. "Shopkeeper, take the money." Miss Chow expressionlessly counted 3 spirit coins and gave it to him, sending him away angrily. "Eat." Arbor picked up the bowl of noodles again and started eating. The round-faced girl swallowed a mouthful of saliva. In the end, she could not resist the temptation of the egg noodles. She picked up the bowl with both hands and started eating. "It's so delicious. Hot soup, hot noodles, and freshly fried eggs. It's flavorful and can fill my stomach." Wood, Arbor almost choked on the noodles. She looked up at the round-faced girl and twitched her mouth. "Don't cry." The round-faced girl looked at her with tears in her eyes. Good. Arbor. She felt like she was looking at Jolin. What was going on? Could it be that all foodies were the same? "Little big sister, I am Qi Xian. What about you?" Arbor. "Big sister Qiao, thank you for your hospitality." Qi Xian immediately entered her familiar mode. Out of a foodie's instinct, she ate the last piece of vegetable and finished the bowl of noodle soup. Arbor. No. She had to keep a straight face. Why did she feel like laughing? After eating, Qi Xian rubbed her round belly and let out a long sigh of satisfaction. "I'm finally full. Do you want some buns?" Arbor pointed at a meat bun at the side. "You're not eating?" Qi Xuan's eyes lit up. Arbor picked up some noodles with her chopsticks and put it into her mouth. "I think I'm full after a bowl of noodles. Then I won't stand on ceremony." Qi Xuan's little paw was just about to reach for the bun when the little white snake curled its tail and rolled the bun over. The little snake's entire body coiled around the bun. It lowered its little head and started eating the meat bun. Arbor. Qi Xuan's eyes widened. You. Qi Xian pointed at the white snake and said, "You 3 times in a row." Then, she turned to look at Arbor with a strange expression and said, "This snake of yours really can eat anything. Have you ever seen a snake eating a meat bun?" The scene in front of him was simply inexplicably strange. "Oh, just treat it as a human," Arbor said indifferently. He took out the teapot and poured himself a cup of water. He also poured another cup for Qi Xian and the little snake. "If you're not full, I'll order 2 more buns for you." No need. Qi Xian hurriedly waved her small hands and said, "I'm full. You were the one who said that I didn't want to eat the buns. I was afraid that it would go to waste." Arbor coughed lightly and took 2 sips of water from his teacup. "What are your plans for the future?" "I originally wanted to enroll in the Sunlight Academy. Registration for the Sunlight Academy was at the end of July, and enrollment was at the beginning of August. I thought that since everyone is new here, they would usually find an academy to stay in." Qi Xian couldn't help but sniffle when she said this. "But I didn't expect the Sunlight Academy to be so fraudulent. Just the enrollment fee alone is 10 spirit coins, and it still doesn't guarantee admission. Also, after enrolling, you still have to pay 100 spirit coins for a semester. Where do I have the money? Chapter 1580. Moreover, I heard that the Sunlight Academy's examination is very strict. Even I might not be able to get in. Why waste the registration fee? Qi Xianxian lowered her head. I've always heard you guys talk about the 4 great academies of sun, moon, and stars. What exactly are they? You don't know? Sun, moon, and stars are the 4 biggest academies in Shantian Prefecture. The number of students they recruit every year is extremely limited. Everyone fights to get in. I heard that they have their own style of teaching. After entering the academy, within a year, almost everyone can open their spirit meridians and comprehend one of the 5 spirits. Oh, what do they teach? They teach everyone to comprehend the power of the 5 spirits. Qi Xianxian looked at Arbor strangely. When we were in the lower star area, we couldn't comprehend the 5 spirits at all. Our starting point is already much lower than people of the same age in the 6 prefectures. After coming here, if we can't comprehend one of the 5 spirits within a year, we will be forcefully sent back. Arbor was stunned. Then I saw the entrance of Shantian Prefecture and the small market near the Thunderous Plain. There are also many ordinary people. Could it be that they can send all these ordinary people back to the lower star area? Of course not. I'm talking about people like us who were summoned by the heavenly Tao and went through the stairway to heaven to come to Shantian Prefecture from the lower star area. If we were the natives of Shantian Prefecture, we wouldn't have such worries. Isn't it very unfair? Qi Xianxian puffed up her cheeks and said indignantly. I also think it's very unfair. But this is the way of the world. Other people's starting point is higher than ours. Like Shantian Prefecture, some of them can open their spirit meridians at birth and absorb the spirit chi of heaven and earth by themselves. And in our lower star area, there's almost no spirit chi of heaven and earth. If you can find a spiritual land here, it will be of great help to your cultivation. Oh, Arbor nodded. No wonder they wanted to go to the academy to study. It was to systematically learn how to open their spirit meridians and comprehend the power of the 5 spirits. However, none of this seemed to be important to her. If I can open my spirit meridians within a year and comprehend one of the spirit essences, that would be great. Qi Xianxian raised her head and let her imagination run wild. At the side, the little white snake had finished eating half of the meat bun. It turned its head and glanced at her, giving her a look of disdain. Nothing. Chase, please. Within a year, he only wanted to open his spiritual meridians and comprehend one of the 5 spirits. Just like his little master, she was so ambitious. He would definitely look for a spiritual land and break through to become a level 7 spirit master. The little white snake's bragging was about to reach the heavens. Luckily, he didn't say it out loud. Otherwise, Qi Xianxian would have fainted from shock. Oh, Qi Xianxian. Strange. Why do I suddenly feel like I can't continue the conversation? Sister Qiao, where are you going? Which academy are you going to? I plan to wait for my senior brothers and the others. Qi Xuanxuan's small face immediately fell. You have companions. I'm the only one from our star field. So, I can't even find a companion. She sighed, her eyes filled with confusion. This was a feeling of uncertainty about her future. Why don't we wait for my senior brothers and the others to come and take the exam for that Sunlight Academy? Okay. Chapter 1581. Qi Xuanxuan's face immediately lit up, and she looked at Arbor with sparkling eyes. She clung onto her arm as if they were close friends and nodded her head repeatedly. Sister Qiao, you're the best. I don't have to wander around by myself anymore. Qi Xianxian tilted her head with a smile. Wander around, that was an exaggeration. Arbor pulled her hand away and coughed lightly. He pulled a long face and said, I'm 15 years old and was born on the 20th of March. What about you? I'm also 15 years old and was born in February. Then don't call me sister anymore. Okay, I'll call you Xiao Qiao, and you can call me Xianxian. How's that? Oh, just call me Jojo. Xiao Qiao. Xiao Qiao didn't sound very pleasing to the ears. Okay, you're Jojo, and I'm Xianxian. Okay, That's even better. This girl was so happy that she looked like she was flying just because of title. It was truly hilarious. Arbor pursed his lips and tried his best to keep a straight face. He said solemnly, "Let's stay at Joy Pavilion tonight." Huh? Stay here. How much does that cost? Shopkeeper, we'll stay here for one night. Okay. Miss, our store is honest with all customers. We only charge 20 spirit coins for one night. What? Before Qi Xianxian could say anything, the shopkeeper tilted his head and pointed at the price tag on the opposite side. Honest with all customers. The price is clearly stated. Then is tomorrow's breakfast included? Of course not. The shopkeeper turned his head and bared his teeth as he shouted. He stared at Qi Xianxian and Qi Xianxian. Fuck, you're dreaming. Tomorrow's breakfast is included? Why don't you say that you'll pay for tomorrow's lunch as well? Arbor took out a money pouch and counted 20 spirit coins for the shopkeeper. He also gave him 2 extra spirit coins. Prepare some hot water. All right. The shopkeeper received the money and answered in a particularly loud voice. Ah, this old man liked little girls like the stoic face. They didn't talk much, took money quickly, were nimble, and had a straightforward personality, right? Qi Xianxian rolled her eyes and exchanged glances with the shopkeeper. Both of them snorted in unison. This shopkeeper is really shady. All right, we'll just stay for one night. My senior marshal brother and the others will probably arrive tomorrow. That's great. We can go to the Sunlight Academy to take the test before the 25th. Arbor nodded her little head and reached out her little hand to let the little white snake wrap around her wrist. The little white snake was like a piece of warm jade. Its body was warm. When it was still wrapped around his wrist, it looked like a bracelet. Shopkeeper, on my way here, I saw several talisman shops in your city. Is business good? Of course. Miss, there's something you don't know. An ordinary safety talisman in a talisman shop can be sold for 50 spirit coins. A peace charm. Arbor was slightly startled. Someone bought it? Io, little girl, you're new here, so you don't know. These days, in our Shantian prefecture, there are only those who complain that talismans are sold too little. There's never been a saying that no one buys them. The peace charm and body-securing talisman are selling very well. Oh, Arbor nodded slightly. The peace charm can seek luck and avoid misfortune. Apart from that, it doesn't seem to have any other special uses. Io, that peace charm is especially effective against ghosts. As long as you wear a middle-grade yellow peace charm, ghosts won't be able to approach you for 24 hours. Chapter 1582. Ghost Spirits. Arbor was taken aback. Ghost spirits can be seen everywhere here, on their sea-cone planet. Things like ghost spirits seem to be rare. The little monk once said that ghost spirits were formed from a wisp of resentment between heaven and earth. They accumulated and didn't disperse, and, as ghost spirits, they possessed the power of evil. On Seacone Planet, other than that time when she returned to Quoto Village and the little monk said that there were ghost spirits in the village, she had never seen ghost spirits before. Normally, didn't they all turn into zombies after turning into zombies? However, regardless of whether it was zombies or ghost spirits, our dear Xiaomu didn't like them. They were dirty and definitely very ugly. That's right. A while ago, the eldest miss of Landlord Li's family in the eastern part of the city was possessed by the kind of ghost spirit you mentioned. Oh my, you don't know. That shopkeeper was like a chatterbox and couldn't stop once he started talking. Landlord Li's eldest miss started combing her hair in front of a mirror in the middle of the night and even kept giggling. That freaking scene is what you call horrifying. Oh, Qi Xianxian, who was currently listening to the ghost story with her arms crossed in horror, suddenly laughed involuntarily. Turning around to look at the little stoic's cold and desolate face, Qi Xianxian couldn't help but chuckle. Shopkeeper, it's useless. Our Jojo won't be frightened by your ghost story. The shopkeeper pursed his lips disinterestedly. Who's telling you stories? I'm telling you the truth. Later on, Landlord Li went to invite an extremely renowned talisman master in the city. The shopkeeper slapped his thigh and gushed. The master fought with that ghost spirit for 3 days and 2 nights. In the end, he bought an immobilization talisman and immobilized it. When the shopkeeper said this, his finger suddenly aimed at Qi Xianxian. Qi Xianxian pursed her lips and slapped his finger away. Then he subdued the ghost spirit. Of course not. The shopkeeper shook his head and said, at that time, the situation was extremely perilous. That ghost spirit suddenly opened its bloody mouth and bit down at the talisman master. So it turns out that the talisman wasn't powerful enough and couldn't immobilize that powerful ghost spirit. That's an intermediate body, securing talisman. It can't even stop a ghost spirit. All right. The two of them nodded repeatedly. Qi Xianxian urged from the side. Elder, can't you make it short? The shopkeeper slapped his thigh again. The simulated talisman master shouted angrily. That talisman master threw out another two-body, securing talismans, and shouted, freeze for me. This time, it's finally stabilized. Arbor's mouth twitched. This shopkeeper was very neurotic, as if he had personally witnessed a fierce battle between a talisman master and a ghost spirit. Yet, he was still able to describe it in such a vivid manner. In the end, that talisman master threw out an extremely powerful attack talisman and directly killed that ghost spirit. Let it disappear from the world. Immeasurable justice will prevail. After the shopkeeper finished reciting, he looked up and saw a circle of people standing around him. Each of them was listening with great interest. Then, their faces were filled with admiration as they clapped. Arbor was speechless as he looked at the sky. He stood up and pulled Qi Xianxian towards the stairs. With an indifferent expression, he said, shopkeeper, if this restaurant can't continue operating in the future, you can still set up a street stall and tell stories. Ha ha ha. Qi Xianxian laughed loudly. Hey, do you believe that guy's words? As if I would believe him. Arbor shook his head and said, however, what he said about the ghost spirit being immobilized by the body securing talisman is probably true. Chapter 1583. Talisman practitioners are truly amazing. Only their attacks are effective not only on humans, but also on ghosts. Arbor shrugged. The two of them returned to their room together and soaked in a hot bath before heading to bed early to rest. Arbor had a beautiful dream. She dreamed that Emo Yin was standing under an elm tree in the courtyard, gazing at her with a smile and extending his slender hand toward her. He wanted a hug. Arbor's eyes brightened, and she immediately skipped over and threw herself into his embrace. Her small head burrowed into his chest, and she looked up at him with an eager expression. Lien. Following her call, Emo Lien's figure dissipated like a shattered star, causing her to throw herself at empty air. When she opened her eyes and woke up, she rolled off the bed. She was still hugging a stiff sandalwood pillow, causing her small stomach to hurt a bit. Puff. A light chuckle came from the bed. Arbor turned her head and saw Qi Xianxian sitting there with her legs bent. Her long hair hung loosely, and her large eyes curved into crescents as she looked at her with a smile. Io, your sleeping posture is really terrible. Tonight, you sleep inside, and I'll sleep outside, so that you won't roll off the bed again. Arbor stood up expressionlessly with an I don't know what you're talking about expression on her face. She calmly threw the pillow on the bed and got up to wash up. Qi Xianxian laughed out loud. She discovered that when this little stoic encountered something she didn't want to face, she would always use an expressionless face to bluff her way out. A classic stubborn duck who refused to admit her mistake. She hopped off the bed and cheerfully ran to her side, elbowing her arm. Hey, who's Lien? The little fellow, who was wiping her face, paused and then expressionlessly replied, Hubby. What? Qi Xianxian was stunned. You're married. The little fellow nodded vigorously. Qi Xianxian was incredulous. Hey, we mystic cultivators have very long lifespans. Unlike them normal humans who have to hastily find someone to marry when they reach 15 years old. Hey, why are you doing this? Arbor turned his head to look at her. After all the selections, the ones left are all old men. She married early and chose well. My husband is very outstanding. He's the most outstanding person in this world. Xuan's eyes widened again. You don't look like someone who needs to rely on men. Arbor's little face was stoic. He turned to look at her and punched his chest with his little hand. Appearance. What you see of my strength is just a facade. My heart is actually very fragile. Xian almost slipped and fell to the ground. A person who easily opened her mouth and told the little white snake to take the beautiful fairy's life. Was her heart weak? What kind of joke was this? Is your husband really as good as you say? Yes. He's the kind of person who attracts bees and butterflies when he walks on the street. He's the kind of person who makes a lot of strange women look at me. Xuan's jaw almost dropped. Why do I have to look at you? Shouldn't they be looking at your husband? How would I know? The little stoic said coldly. It's simply boring to death. I always ask them what they're looking at, but no one pays any attention to me. Xian, that I really pity your husband. I'm guessing that your husband's path is definitely not easy. Jojo, what are we doing out so early in the morning? Are we going to wait for your senior brother at the city gate? Chapter 1584. Xian hurriedly changed the topic. She felt that if she continued to chat, her heart would be pierced by 10,000 arrows. It was very painful. No, let's go take a look at a talisman shop. The two of them left Joy Pavilion and walked towards the largest talisman shop in the city. That shopkeeper yesterday was long-winded for half a day, but he didn't say who the powerful talisman master that official Lee's family hired was. He also heard it from hearsay. Arbor shook his head indifferently. He added some details and made it up again. Who would fight with a ghost spirit for 3 days and 2 nights? Wouldn't that alarm the entire city? Isn't that so? Xian pursed her lips. Arbor suddenly stopped and stared at a man's robe hanging outside a ready-made clothing store. He snorted and muttered, "So ugly." "Ah!" Xian exclaimed in surprise. She turned around and saw that it was a man's robe. A blooming green lotus was embroidered on the cuffs and corners of the robe. It looked quite exquisite. "Isn't it pretty?" Xian saw a tall young man trying on this robe. Arbor pursed his lips and said, "It's so ugly. It's not even 1/10 as good as my embroidery." "Huh?" Xian looked at Arbor strangely and said, "Jojo, you're even learning embroidery. Mystic cultivators like us only need to focus on cultivation. How do you have the spare time to learn embroidery? Why don't you embroider a pouch for me next time?" Xian said with a grin. "No." Arbor shook his head. "I'll only embroider a lotus pouch for my lotus." Why did this sentence, "my little hands only embroider for my husband," sound so ear-piercing? Why did she suddenly feel like her heart was being pricked? Xuan's heart ached, and she reached out to press her chest. Later on, she found out how beautiful Jojo's lotus embroidery was. She just couldn't understand where this little fellow got his confidence from. He actually said that the lotus embroidery of a ready-made clothing store wasn't even 1/10 as good as his. Just how arrogant was he? Only Prince Mo liked to wear the crooked Mo Lien embroidered by Jojo, showing off everywhere. It was so funny, but he was good-looking. No matter how ugly his clothes were, he was still handsome. The third store next to the clothing store was the largest talisman store in Jilu City. However, before they reached the entrance, a Taoist priest holding a peach with sword chased after them from the talisman shop and shouted, "Evildoer, where do you think you're going?" "Ah!" A shrill scream was heard, and a woman who was being chased by the Taoist priest fell to the ground with a plop. She crawled forward in terror and just happened to crawl to Chiao Mu's side, reaching out to grab her. Before he could even cry out, "Miss, save me," a merciless little foot stepped on the back of his hand. "Ah!" The woman screamed like a pig being slaughtered. The Taoist priest chased after him, waving the peach with sword in his hand as he shouted anxiously, "The 4 directions command. Demons and evils invade. Talisman. Vanquish evil." Slap! The yellow talisman was stuck on the back of the woman's head, and it fluttered in the wind. Arbor blinked, then blinked again. This talisman obviously didn't have any talisman power. It was a fake talisman. When she turned her head and saw the Taoist priest in front of her, her eyes widened, and she shouted with a face full of shock, "It's you." The Taoist priest cupped his hands and smiled at her. Miss, don't panic. Ghost spirit has been subdued by me. In 3 days and 3 nights, she will be burned to ashes by the talisman fire. Chapter 1585. You don't recognize me? Arbor sized him up and said expressionlessly, I haven't seen you for several years, but you've put on quite a bit of weight. The Taoist priest was baffled. After carefully sizing up Arbor, he shook his head and said, This humble Taoist doesn't recognize you. Do you still remember Quoto Village's little fatty Joe? 4 directions command. Demons and evils disperse. Evils quickly submit. Arbor extended 2 fingers and expressionlessly gestured in front of the Taoist priest, pretending that she was swinging her peachwood sword. The Taoist priest immediately widened his eyes in disbelief. You. The ghosts and monsters here are truly too fierce. Little friend, you'd better hurry and run. This humble Taoist won't earn those 100 taels of silver. Arbor was still expressionless, but the Taoist priest suddenly jumped up. You're from Quoto Village. Arbor swept him a glance. I didn't expect that you were a fake who pretended to be mysterious. The Taoist priest pounced over, wanting to cover Arbor's small mouth, but she dodged him. The Taoist priest smiled embarrassedly at her. Little friend, it's a joyous occasion for us to meet an old friend in a foreign land. How about this? This humble Taoist will treat you to a meal at a restaurant today. How about it? Arbor couldn't help but find it funny. Then she thought about how this Taoist priest might have pretended to be mysterious in Quoto Village, but he had never harmed anyone in the end, so she dropped the matter. Arbor shook her head and said, I won't disturb your business anymore. She glanced at a middle-aged couple walking out of the talisman shop from the corner of her eye. Then she walked around the Taoist priest and walked into the talisman shop. She came today specifically to find out about the prices of talismans in the 6 prefectures. Next time, if she didn't have enough spirit coins, she could also draw talismans to earn money. Mrs. This way, please. When the shop assistant saw that Arbor's clothes were out of the ordinary, he hurriedly welcomed them with a smile and led them into the shop. What kind of talismans do you want to buy? Recently, this humble shop received a small batch of fire spirit talismans. The fire spirit is powerful and can protect you from danger. Are the 2 misses interested? Oh, how much are you selling this fire talisman for? Arbor asked curiously. This batch of medium-level fire talismans is priced at 1,000 spirit coins each. Wow, 1,000 spirit coins. Chi Xuan's mouth was slightly agape. What about the body securing talisman and the peace talisman? An intermediate safety talisman costs 50 spirit coins each. As for the body securing talisman, it costs 100 spirit coins each. Oh, my shop is honest with all customers. This is basically the current market price. If this batch of fire talismans were to be auctioned, the price would be even higher. Maybe it'll be around 1,100 or 1,200. Arbor nodded his small head. He turned his hand, and a high-level blue fire spirit talisman appeared in his palm. How much can this sell for? The shop assistant's eyes immediately widened. He took a step back and bowed respectfully. Could it be that this young lady is a talisman master? You're not here to buy talismans, but to sell them? Yes. Arbor replied non-committally. Miss, please wait for a moment. I will immediately invite our talisman master over. After speaking, he hurriedly ran to invite the talisman master. When Xiao Mu turned her head, she saw Qi Xianxian glaring at her with round eyes. You're a talisman master? Yes, what's wrong? Heavens, what's with that calm expression of yours? Yesterday, they talked for so long about how powerful talisman masters were, but she wasn't moved at all. Chapter 1586. Today, in the blink of an eye, Qi Xianxian suddenly realized that the talisman master she worshipped so much was actually standing beside her. Why didn't you say so earlier? Qi Xianxian grumbled as she hit her. You really know how to keep secrets. I didn't keep it a secret. Arbor glanced at her, then turned to look at a middle-aged man who was brought over by the shop assistant. That man had a square head and big ears, and had a benevolent appearance. When he saw Arbor and Qi Xianxian, he smiled and nodded at them. May I know which one of you is the Talisman Master? Qi Xianxian pointed at Arbor. Arbor handed over the blue fire spirit talisman in his hand. I want to know how much this fire spirit talisman can be sold for. After receiving the talisman that Xiao Mu handed over, the talisman appraiser master's eyes involuntarily brightened, and he looked up in excitement. This talisman of yours is an advanced-level fire talisman. Moreover, it's a blue fire spirit talisman. The power of this high-grade blue fire spirit talisman is incomparable to that of a middle-grade fire spirit talisman. The talisman master was extremely excited. He held the talisman in his hand as if he had obtained a treasure. This small store is willing to purchase this blue talisman for 12,000 spirit coins. Would the master be willing to part with it? Arbor took out 9 talismans, including the one in the talisman master's hand, and said, "Part with all of them." The talisman master's jaw probably dropped, and he didn't make a sound for a long time. When Arbor and Qi Xianxian were respectfully escorted out of the talisman store, half an incense stick had already passed. My God, you talisman masters really are a lot of money. This talisman master casually sold 10 fire spirit talismans that ordinary people couldn't even dream of earning in their entire lives. He actually easily obtained 120,000 spirit coins. Arbor received a spirit coin card. Only then did he know that Shantian Prefecture could pay by card. It wasn't worthwhile to hold a bunch of spirit coins and count them one by one. However, drawing these fire spirit talismans must have consumed a lot of mental energy and mystic energy. Qi Xianxian said, "You must have spent a lot of time to draw these 10 fire spirit talismans. Why did you sell them all? You're not short of money now. It's good to keep a few for yourself." "You want it?" Arbor took out 10 fire spirit talismans and gave them to her. "You can play with them." Qi Xianxian. What to do? He felt that he had befriended a tycoon through and through. Why does this feel so unreal? A certain child was so agitated that his footsteps were light. He followed Arbor dizzily and floated along. "Yeah, I think I just received a gift of 120,000 spirit coins. High-level blue talismans are no longer a challenge to me. I can draw about 2,000 high-grade blue talismans a night now, and they were all drawn with ebony. It was not that kind of talisman paper. She had already stopped using this talisman paper in battle. He still had a lot of talisman papers with him, and he had drawn a lot of them before. If he needed money in the future, he could use them to exchange for spirit coins." Arbor, who was walking in front, suddenly stopped. Qi Xianxian bumped into his back. She rubbed her nose and raised her head to look at the Pill Guild signboard. "What's wrong? Do you want to buy pills? Then let's go in and take a look. There's a Pill Guild here too." Yes, from the upper 3 prefectures to the lower star domain, Pill Guilds and Mystic Cultivator Guilds are everywhere. It's just that in the 6 prefectures, Mystic Cultivator Guilds are called Spirit Cultivator Guilds. Chapter 1587. Qi Xianxian told Arbor everything she knew. "Oh, talisman shops, on the other hand, are less common. I heard that after the zombie outbreak, many people were injured. Even the price of elixirs increased. Nowadays, both elixirs and elixirs are extremely expensive. Ordinary people can't even afford to buy the blood-staunching elixir, not to mention the precious elixirs." Arbor stepped into the Alchemy Guild's door and saw a neat row of medicine cabinets. An old man was sitting behind the long cabinet, teaching a young apprentice how to identify herbs. When he saw Arbor and Qi Xianxian enter, he was stunned and quickly stood up with a smile. "Ladies, are you looking to buy some elixirs?" Arbor shook his head. "Selling." The old man was stunned. Qi Xianxian was also stunned. "Selling again?" Arbor took out a small jade bottle and threw it to the old man. 3 high-grade life extension elixirs. I wonder how much they can be sold for. High-grade life extension elixirs? The old man from the Dan Alliance was shocked. He hurriedly took out a small tweezer and a jade tray. He carefully poured out a pill and held it in front of him with the tweezer. He sniffed it twice, and his dim, old eyes suddenly became clear. He stood up excitedly and quickly put the elixir back into the jade bottle. He cupped his hands and said to Arbor, "Sorry for the disrespect. I didn't know that this young lady is already a high-grade alchemist." Arbor shook his head. "This elixir was made by my master. He asked me to come and sell it." The old man heaved a sigh of relief. Qi Xianxian also heaved a sigh of relief. No, no, no. Her heart almost stopped beating. This young lady in front of her was the same age as her. Not only was her cultivation level high, but if it was revealed that she was both a talisman master and an alchemist, how could she live happily? What was the point of being friends with such a monster? She was being attacked every day and wanted to kill herself. Fortunately, this high-grade elixir was made by her master. Yes, yes. Her heart finally calmed down. Arbor blinked and looked at Qi Xianxian in confusion. He then turned to the old man and asked, "How much can it be sold for?" High-level life-prolonging pills, no matter in the past or in the future, will always be in high demand. Once they enter the market, however many there are, they will be snatched up. This life prolongation pill has purple veins, indicating that a high-grade pill. Its medicinal effects will definitely be superb. This old man is willing to pay 30,000 spirit coins each for the 3 life prolongation pills in little friend's hands. What do you think, little friend? 30,000 soul coins. 1. Qi Xianxian felt as if her heart had just gone through a long-distance run. At this moment, it was thumping nonstop. What about this spirit-returning liquid? Arbor threw 2 small bottles to the old man. The old man hurriedly opened it, and his hands trembled again. It's actually a purple high-grade spirit-returning liquid. Although the spirit-returning liquid is of the same grade as a medium-grade pill, it wins in that everyone needs it. Every spirit master will recognize the spirit-returning liquid and buy it. Wait, little friend, this spirit-returning liquid. Unexpectedly, can this old man have a taste? Go ahead. Arbor waved his hand casually. The old man hurriedly poured out half a mouthful of the spirit-returning liquid and drank it. Immediately after, his whole body trembled. He looked at Arbor in disbelief and said, "The spirit-returning liquid made by your master can actually recover 1/5 of one's spirit energy in a short period of time." This was completely different from the low-grade spirit-returning liquid that could recover 1/10 of one's spirit energy. Chapter 1588. Furthermore, this bottle of spirit-returning liquid was enough for 2 uses. 2 uses. An ordinary bottle of spirit-returning liquid could only replenish spiritual energy once. Yes, Arbor did not deny it and nodded. From the moment she made it, she had already realized that the effect of this spirit-returning liquid was much better than the low-grade products that others used. Little friend, I am willing to pay 30,000 spirit coins for the 2 bottles of spirit-returning liquid in your hands. The low-grade spirit-returning liquid in the market was about 3,000 spirit coins. The old man was willing to pay 5 times the price for the 2 bottles of spirit-returning liquid. It was a fair trade. Arbor nodded and was sent out of the door by the old man, full of gratitude. After half an incense's time, Arbor and Qi Xianxian walked out of the Alchemy Guild with another 120,000 spirit coins in their spirit coin card. Qi Xuanxuan's face was already numb. She felt that this rich friend of hers not only knew how to spend, but also how to earn money so easily. No wonder she did not feel the pinch when spending money. It was because money came quickly. Qi Xianxian had guessed wrongly this time. Arbor did not feel the pinch when spending other people's money. That was why he paid so happily. With 240,000 spirit coins in his card and 290,000 spirit coins in his inner world, Arbor did not have to worry that he would not have enough money to spend in the future. He walked towards the city gate. Qi Xianxian followed him expressionlessly. She might have been dreaming just now. After leaving the door, Miss Xiao gave her a bottle of life-prolonging pill. There was 1 life-prolonging pill inside. She must have not woken up yet. This dream was too fucking realistic. There was a tea stall at the city gate. Arbor led Qi Xianxian to sit down and casually drank some herbal tea. They waited at the city gate for senior brother Situ and the rest. Logically speaking, with their strength, they should have arrived by now. She had already destroyed the arena at the entrance. They should not have encountered any danger. However, why had they not arrived yet? Not a single person had arrived. This situation did not seem right. Arbor sat in front of the tea stall and frowned. Qi Xianxian saw this and hurriedly said, "Jojo, don't worry. Your senior brother Sidhu might have been delayed by something. Let's wait a little longer." Xiaomu hummed in agreement. Xiaomu waited with Qi Xianxian until nightfall before listlessly following Qi Xianxian back to the Joy Pavilion. The two of them stayed at the Joy Pavilion for a full 5 days, but Sidhu, Yi, and the others were still nowhere to be seen. Could it be that they went directly to another city? Is that why he went astray from you? Arbor frowned as he looked at Qi Xianxian and muttered to himself, "Really? Yes. However, the registration for the Sun Moon Starry School was imminent. I think if they want to find you, they will definitely register. Maybe they will meet you in the Sunlight Academy. All right, let's go to the Sunlight Academy's registration site." Arbor nodded. "Great. Then I'll go pack up and we'll leave right away." The Sunlight Academy's registration and assessment site was in Anka City. Let's take a flying eagle and get there before dark. How can a land whale be so fast? It has so many legs. Qi Xianxian pursed her lips and held her arm. "We don't have to take the land whale. That's too expensive. Let's take a flying eagle this time. It'll be much cheaper." "No, we'll just take the blue one." Qi Xianxian watched as she summoned a large green-blue bird and said in surprise, "Isn't your mystic beast the little white snake?" Chapter 1589. The morning sun shone brightly today. Blue One flew into the sky and spread its wings. With a slight bump, Qi Xianxian exclaimed and quickly steadied herself. Arbor sat on Blue Wan's back and tugged at Qi Xianxian, saying softly, "Be careful, don't fall." Qi Xianxian couldn't help but laugh. "My little grandaunt, I'm a level 13 great mystic cultivator after all. How can I fall?" Blue Wan's flying speed is still very fast. Arbor said, "You'd better be careful. It's really fast. At this speed, I'm afraid we'll reach Anka City before the sky turns dark." While speaking, Qi Xianxian thought of something and turned to look at Arbor. She asked softly, "But speaking of which, do you know the way to Anka City?" "I've never been to Anka City. How would I know the way?" Arbor looked at the sky, speechless. Qi Xianxian was speechless. "All right then, if we really don't know the way, we'll come down and ask someone for directions." Qi Xianxian pursed her lips and suggested, "Is it really okay for you to be so unreliable?" At first, she thought that the little fellow summoned Blue Wan because she knew the way. However, reality proved that this wasn't the case. She was overthinking everything. Blue Wan flew extremely fast in the sky and left Julu City far behind in the blink of an eye. The two people who had no sense of direction finally arrived at Anka City's gate when it was close to dusk. Midway, the two planned to come down and ask for directions, but when they got down, they realized that the city was filled with dust and sand and was completely deserted. There was no one to ask. After circling in the sky for a long time, they finally found this city. Qi Xianxian couldn't help but break out in cold sweat. Sigh. She really didn't expect Shantian Prefecture to be so desolate and so far away from each other. It's simply incomparable to our Shaoxian nation's capital city. In our Shaoxian nation's capital city, it's overcrowded everywhere. Recalling the beautiful scenery of her hometown, Qi Xuanxuan's face was filled with nostalgia. After the capital city built a fortification, basically everyone rushed to the capital city. It was so lively. Forget it. This is already a thing of the past. Jojo, do you think Anka City will ask us to pay the entrance fee again? Arbor snorted. What do you think? Look at the lineup in front. They must be charging the entrance fee. Speaking of which, between the various cities of Shantian Prefecture, just the cost of entering the city was enough to earn a large sum of money. Not to mention that every foreign citizen who wanted to stay in the city temporarily had to pay spirit coins every day. Qi Xianxian puffed up her cheeks. The cities of Shantian Prefecture are really a money-making business. Look at them. Even the soldiers guarding the city are eating greedily. One look, and you can tell that they aren't good people. Qi Xianxian muttered softly. Arbor looked at her helplessly. All right, other people's business has nothing to do with us. Let's see how much we have to pay to enter the city. I feel like this Anka city is slightly bigger than Jilu City. Maybe his entrance fee will be higher than Jilu City's, Arbor analyzed. What? Qi Xianxian couldn't help but cry out. Heavens! Could it be that these people were robbers in their previous lives? One spirit coin wasn't enough for the entrance fee. They actually wanted more. Arbor shook his head. The world today is like this. If you want to survive, you can only abide by the laws of this world. That's all. Chapter 1590. You can pass now. Next. The city guard bellowed and waved away an old man who was pushing a wheelbarrow like a fly. He urged him to enter the city quickly and not block the way. The old man's left leg was slightly lame, and he stumbled as he walked. His movements were slightly slow. The soldier urged him a few times, and his eyes were filled with impatience. After the old man entered the city, a middle-aged woman followed behind him and bowed to the city guard with a basket in her hand. I'm out of the city to do some small business. The woman smiled and said, I just left this morning. Can you waive my entrance fee? I just paid 2 spirit coins yesterday. You're really bold to make such an unreasonable request. The soldier's face darkened as he said angrily, If I waive your entrance fee today, what will the others think? When the city lord blames us, who can bear the responsibility? Can you bear the responsibility, or can I bear the responsibility? The soldier reprimanded sternly. The woman sobbed and said, But for small businesses like us, we have to go in and out of the city frequently, and we can't earn much in a day. If we have to pay 2 spirit coins every time we enter the city, won't we suffer a huge loss? I have a residence permit, and it hasn't expired yet. Sir Soldier, can't you make an exception? This is the rule. Do you want to break the rule? Do you believe that I won't arrest you immediately? The city guard shouted angrily with a dark face. Don't waste everyone's time. If you don't want to enter the city, hurry up and get lost. Those who want to enter, come in. Those who don't want to pay can get lost. This is the rules set by the city lord. Every time we enter the city, we have to pay 2 spirit coins as entrance fee. No one could be an exception. The woman cried miserably and helplessly. She could only take out 2 spirit coins and hand it to the soldier. Then, she bent her back and sighed pitifully as she moved into the city. Qi Xianxian pouted and said, Tisk, they're really unreasonable. You're right, Jojo. They really don't even spit out the bones. They're asking for 2 spirit coins. Damn it, this is twice the price of Jilu City. Forget it. It's just a small amount of money. Don't waste your breath on them. Arbor said indifferently. He followed the group and soon arrived at the city gate. Arbor took out 4 spirit coins and threw them to the soldier. Then he glanced at him coldly. Can we go in now? Us. A cold voice sounded out. For some reason, the city guard felt a slight shock in his heart. He hurriedly nodded and said, Ladies, please. Originally, he only thought that the little girl in front of him was very beautiful. But after looking at her for a while, he felt a sharp pain in his head, so he didn't dare to look at her blindly. Wenka City was the largest city north of Shantian Prefecture. Its architectural style was similar to that of Jilu City. There were tall bunkers built with beige, colored stones everywhere. As soon as they entered the city, there was a wide official road. There were many small stalls on both sides of the road. Most of them were stalls selling small items. Every stall owner was trying their best to promote their products to the citizens who had just entered the city. There were very few people selling food. Occasionally, one would see someone selling fruits. Those were oranges or pears, but most of them had already turned black and rotted. It was obvious that they weren't fresh. How could this kind of thing possibly catch Xiao Mu's eye? Chapter 1591. Jojo, why don't we find an inn to stay at first? After we settle down, we'll go out for a stroll in the city. What do you think? Actually, the 2 didn't have any luggage. It was just that when they went out, they carried a small cloth bag with them to hide their identities. Apart from a set of old clothes and food, there was basically nothing else in the cloth bag. The 2 girls were meticulous and kept a low profile. In addition, Arbor's newly made aura concealing talisman was already a yellow-level talisman, so it could completely conceal their cultivation aura. Once it was affixed, it could be maintained for a month, allowing the two to look like ordinary people when they walked outside. Other than Arbor's attractive appearance, no one would know that they were great mystic cultivators above level 13. Being outside was different from being at home, so they naturally had to be careful and take precautions in everything they did. Qi Xianxian said with a smile, "Sigh, that Joy Pavilion's boss still has some conscience. When we left, he even gave us 10 meat buns for free. It's rare for him to be so magnanimous. If it weren't for these 10 meat buns, I would definitely tear down his Joy Pavilion before I left. What an unscrupulous merchant, charging us so much for lodging. It's 20 spirit coins a day. Including food, it's 40 spirit coins a day. The most abominable thing is that this guy isn't willing to give us a discount. Asking him to reduce his food and lodging expenses is like asking for his life. It's simply unreasonable." Arbor's mouth twitched, and he helplessly glanced at her. "Actually, this is only a small amount of money." The two of them stayed at Joy Pavilion for 6 days and only spent a little more than 200 spirit coins. It's not too expensive, right? Tycoon Xiao thought. Previously, he had spent 480 spirit coins on the land whale. Although it's a small amount of money, we can't let this unscrupulous merchant swindle us. Qi Xianxian puffed up her cheeks. "All right, I know you'll live a frugal life." Arbor nodded and said, "Then I'll leave the task of finding a good inn to you." Qi Xianxian smiled. "All right, just wait and see. I'll definitely find a cheap and comfortable inn." After all, he would probably have to stay in Anka City for a period of time before he entered the academy, so it was his top priority to make himself comfortable. The two of them walked through the bustling streets of Anka City and headed toward the inner city. The sounds of hawking on both sides of the street were mixed with all kinds of voices, creating a lively scene. Qi Xianxian skipped and skipped as she walked in front of the crowd. Sometimes, she would run to the front of the crowd to watch others juggle. Other times, she would join in the fun to watch others do business. She had a smile on her face the entire time. Arbor observed her for a long time. She raised her small hand and touched her ice, cold little stoic face. She criticized inwardly. This is probably how girls of the same age behave normally. Schwa! Suddenly, a large folding fan that was large enough to cover her entire face unfurled in front of her. The words on the fan read, "Romantic and elegant, tasting half a lifetime's worth of delicacies. Like a jade tree facing the wind, tasting the flowers of the world." Written in the middle were the words, "Beauty like jade." What a load of crap. Arbor looked up and saw a man in his late 20s with a large black mole at the corner of his mouth. His beady eyes were shining as he looked at Arbor, and the saliva at the corner of his mouth was about to drip down. Chapter 1592. Arbor looked at that person in disgust and walked to the side. Unexpectedly, the young man with the black mole also moved 2 steps to the side and continued to block her path. He smiled obsequiously and said, "Where are you going, little lady? Big brother will send you back." "Idiot!" Arbor shouted coldly, her stoic face expressionless. Idiot? Who is she talking about?" That man turned back to look at the 4 burly men accompanying him and simultaneously put on an expression that said, "Young master, I'm an idiot." The man nodded in satisfaction and turned to face Arbor with a chuckle. "Little lady, this young master is the son of the 3rd steward of Anka City's city lord residence. Let's get to know each other." Scram! Xiao Mu's concise and comprehensive words expressed her inner impatience. Arbor stared expressionlessly at the man with the big mole in front of her with a cold expression, her thin brows unconsciously furrowed. Qi Xianxian ran to Arbor's side and glared at the man with the big mole in anger. She shouted coldly, "Who are you?" One look at this person's wretched face, and she knew that he wasn't a good person. He actually dared to block her JoJo's path. Was he tired of living? The man with the big mole chuckled with an ugly face. Scram! At that moment, he could only see the little iceberg's stoic face. He hated that his mother didn't give birth to him with two more eyes. Of course, he didn't like the round-faced Qi Xianxian who only had a delicate and pretty face. Qi Xianxian was instantly enraged. "Hey, who are you telling Scram? Who are you? This young master is the son of the third steward of Anka City's city lord residence. Who do you think I am?" The man with the big mole smiled smugly. "In the entire city lord residence, my father's authority is second only to the city lord, the senior steward, and the second steward. My father only needs to say one word, and the two of you can immediately be chased out of the city. So, little lady, do you want to?" Before the man with the big mole could finish speaking, he suddenly realized that the little lady in front of him suddenly moved. A body-securing talisman landed on Big Mole's body. The man with the big mole suddenly felt that he couldn't move his body. He stood upright on the street and stared at the little girl in a daze. What was going on? Why couldn't it move? Just now, he saw the girl take out some kind of talisman and throw it at him, and then he couldn't move. If that was the case, then it must be this little girl's doing. The man with the big mole stared at Arbor in shock. When he opened his mouth, he realized that he couldn't make a sound. He couldn't help but panic. What's going on? How come even his voice was damaged? Could it be this little girl's doing again? Was this girl even human? Without saying a word, he pinned him down in the middle of the street, making the passers-by look at him like he was a monkey. Now, he was even poisoned into a mute. Oh my God, didn't he just find her cute and wanted to talk to her? Was there a need to make him so miserable the moment she made a move? The man with the big mole didn't know that the body-securing talisman and the poison powder were just appetizers. Arbor slowly took out a water spirit talisman from his inner world. He lightly flicked it in his hand and suddenly opened the talisman. With a flick of his finger, the water spirit talisman suddenly split open. The water spirit energy that filled the air suddenly wrapped around the man with the big mole 2 or 3 times, wrapping him into a cocoon. Everyone on the street stopped in their tracks in fright. They all looked dumbfoundedly at the man with the big mole. Chapter 1593. They all had some impression of this man. Wasn't he the son of the third manager of the city lord's estate? He was the only son of the third manager's family and usually caused a lot of trouble in Anka City. No one dared to provoke him because of his father's special authority. If they provoked him, his father would definitely jump out, and at that time, they would have to bear the consequences. Perhaps even their right to live in Anka City would be taken away. Hey, look, the third manager's son seems to have kicked an iron plate. Everyone took pleasure in his misfortune, although they were only secretly communicating and making sarcastic remarks. Their eyes faintly revealed excitement. Great, someone could finally teach this wastrel a lesson for them. Go ahead and teach him a lesson. None of them would mind. The man with the big mole wanted to make a sound, but only a few monosyllabic words came out of his throat. He looked at the little girl in front of him in a panic. The little stoic looked at him coldly, without a trace of emotion in her eyes. Didn't you want to get to know me? Come, let the talisman in my hand get to know you. Attack talisman. Arbor's small hand shook, and to everyone's surprise, a dozen attack talismans appeared in this little girl's hand. This kind of yellow-level blue attack talisman's attack power already reached 80% of a talisman practitioner's cultivation. What did this mean? It meant that the dozen or so talismans that the little fellow casually threw out each had the power of a level 11 mystic cultivator's attack. At the same time, a dozen or so level 11 mystic cultivators launched a sudden attack at the man with the big mole. The man with the big mole really wanted to beg for mercy, but he had no other choice since he couldn't speak. The man with the big mole could only place his hopes on the 4 burly men behind him. Unfortunately, before those 4 burly men could attack, Qi Xianxian rushed forward and threw each of them far away with a punch. The man with the big mole was simply stupefied. He couldn't understand why the 2 little girls in front of him looked so mediocre and ordinary. They actually had such terrifying strength as soon as they attacked. He was well aware of the strength of those 4 burly men. Although level 12 mystic cultivators were nothing in Shantian Prefecture, Wenka City was only a small city and was still some distance away from Shuntian Prefecture's capital. A level 12 mystic cultivator was considered one of the more outstanding people in Anka City. At this moment, the passers-by were unable to express their excitement with words. They secretly exchanged small glances and muttered a few strange words in low voices. They were extremely happy in their hearts that when they went back later, they would spread the news that Big Mole had been humiliated today everywhere. At this moment, the water spirit talisman had completed its final structure. Everyone looked again and saw that Big Black Mole was completely sealed in a square icebox. Separated by a large block of ice, Big Mole looked at the little girl standing in front of him with eyes full of fear. His two eyes were still in a state of panic, and his four limbs, including his facial expression, could not move at all. Chi Xianxian clapped her small hands and walked to the icebox with small steps. She circled around the icebox once before suddenly covering her eyes with her hands and shrieking, "So disgusting." It turned out that Big Black Mole's tears and snot were dripping down from the icebox. At this moment, they had condensed into 3 streaks of ice that hung below his nose and the corners of his eyes. Chapter 1594. Third Steward, this is bad. Young Master was beaten up on the street, and he's severely injured now. He's dying in an alley next to the main street. What? The third steward's expression changed, and he stood up from his seat. This steward was about 60 years old. He had a short goatee, and he was his only son with a big black mole. He treasured his son very much since he was young, and he raised a crafty playboy. Third steward, quickly send someone to check on young master. He's not doing well now. How dare you? Who dares to do this to my son? Third steward, I don't know what happened either. By the time we rushed over, young master already had such a bitter look on his face. The culprit has already left. Why don't you ask passers-by? There's so many people, but none of them saw who did this to my son. The middle-aged man who was reporting the situation to the third steward smiled bitterly and shook his head. I'm sorry, third steward. I've asked several passers-by, but none of them can tell me what the culprit looks like. They only know that it's a young girl. Ridiculous. There's so many young girls in Anka City. Where do you want me to find one of the culprit? The third steward said angrily. Besides, can a young girl defeat my son's 4 strong men so easily? Do you think that's possible? The middle-aged man pursed his lips noncommittally. In fact, it was not impossible. After all, there was always someone better than you. All right, don't say anything else. Quickly take me to see what's going on with young master. When the third steward was led to his son by his subordinates, he realized that his son was in a terrible state. It was not like what his subordinates had reported. He was in a worse state than being on the verge of death. Not only was his face bruised and swollen, but he was also sealed in a solid block of ice. The third steward hurried forward and touched the ice outside. It was a thick block of ice that sealed him inside. It was already good enough that he was not suffocated to death. Through the ice, he could see his son's horrified face, which was covered in tears and snot. Seeing his son like this, he was so angry that he didn't know where to vent. He roared at his son through the ice. Who did this to you? The middle-aged man under the third steward hurriedly stepped forward and said softly, Steward, don't blame him for now. From what I can see, the young master's condition is not good. We have to get him out of the ice as soon as possible. The third steward felt that it was very strange. He had said so much, but his son had not said a word. Why isn't he talking? The third steward asked. This. The middle-aged man stammered. Young master seems to have been planted with a body-securing talisman and was frozen in ice by someone. Moreover, I heard that everyone says that the female talisman master is very powerful. She threw a dozen attacks to attack young master. All of them penetrated the layer of ice and directly hit young master's body, but the ice didn't break. It can be seen that her control over the water spirit is very strong. He's a great spirit master. The third manager's expression was extremely unsightly. If she was a great spirit master, with his cultivation, perhaps he would never have the opportunity to take revenge on her in this lifetime. Chapter 1595. Find her. Dig 3 feet into the ground and find this female talisman master. What should we do, young master? Send someone to invite Master Yin over immediately, the third steward said. The middle-aged man hurriedly left to carry out the order. Master Yin was the most famous talisman master in the city. He would definitely be able to remove the immobilization talisman on young master. Just as the third steward and his men were scrambling to find Master Yin for help, Arbor and Qi Xianxian had already found a quiet and comfortable inn and settled down. Jojo, how long can that immobilization talisman immobilize Big Mole? Qi Xianxian asked in confusion. It can immobilize him for at least 2 hours. However, I added 10 immobilization talismans on that guy, Arbor said indifferently. As soon as he said that, Qi Xianxian opened her mouth slightly and burst into laughter. Big Mole was really unlucky. He could have provoked anyone, but he had to provoke Jojo. According to my calculations, he'll probably be immobilized until tomorrow morning. Qi Xianxian couldn't help but laugh again. That loafer was going to be immobilized until tomorrow morning. This was too funny. It was a pity that she couldn't continue to observe Big Mole's pitiful expression. Let's rest early. We've been busy the whole day. Most importantly, they had spent a long time looking for the way. The two of them had no sense of direction and almost couldn't find where Anka City was. Of course, they couldn't tell others about this. If they did, they would be laughing their heads off. All right, we'll go shopping tomorrow. By then, it'll be the day of the entrance examination in 2 days. Let's go to the mission announcement area tomorrow. There might be an announcement about the examination. MHM. Xiaomu nodded in response and then went to rest. The next day, the two of them slept until the sun was high up in the sky. After eating something, they left the inn and walked towards the center of the city. The mission announcement area is usually at the center of the city. I wonder if Shuntian Prefecture will be different from ours, Qi Xianxian muttered. Why don't we go and accept a mission or something? I'll accept a small mission and complete it as soon as possible. Then, I'll be able to earn some money. Rather than accepting a mission, I might as well sell a talisman. It's more valuable, Arbor said indifferently. Qi Xianxian was immediately dealt a blow. Heavens, you're such a tycoon. Can you shut up and stop talking? Hey, there's a talisman shop here. Do you want to go in and take a look? Well, there's no need. He didn't want to sell talismans now anyway. Just as the two of them were about to pass by the talisman shop, a man and a woman walked out of the door and met each other. The man was about 20 years old and had delicate features. The woman was about 17 or 18 years old. She was wearing a peacock blue dress and a necklace around her neck. She looked a little arrogant. The two of them looked to be about the same age. When the woman walked out with the man's arm, she glanced at Arbor and Qi Xianxian from the corner of her eyes. When they met, the man nodded politely at Xiao Mu and her companion. The woman frowned and asked, "Senior brother, do you know them?" The man called senior brother by the woman was slightly taken aback. He shook his head and said, "Oh, I don't know them." The girl pursed her small mouth, and her gaze circled Xiao Mu's face again. In the end, she pulled her senior brother out of the talisman shop. Qi Xianxian turned to look at the two of them. She pouted and whispered to Arbor. Chapter 1596. Although the two of them look similar in age, they don't look compatible at all. The man looks gentle and refined with a good temper. The woman, on the other hand, is irritable and arrogant. Who knows who she's trying to impress? Arbor sneered and turned to look at Qi Xianxian. We don't know each other anyway, so why bother? Qi Xianxian nodded. The two of them walked around the city center and saw the announcement. 2 days later, the Sunlight Academy will conduct the first round of student selection in Anka City. If you're interested, you can go to the registration area in the city center to register and take the test. Seeing how detailed it was, Qi Xianxian silently read the announcement twice to memorize it. All right, I've memorized it. She reached out to grab Arbor, and the two of them walked back. If there's nothing else, why don't we go into closed-door cultivation for the next 2 days? Anyway, there's nothing much to see in Anka City all day long. It's probably just a little bigger than Jilu City. That's good too. Xiao Mu nodded in agreement. However, The two of them didn't know that their closed-door cultivation for the past 2 days had made the people outside very anxious. The third steward's son had been sealed in that ice block for 20 hours. The third steward had invited many capable people and finally managed to melt his son out of the ice block. It was truly a Herculean effort. After finally getting his son out, the third steward realized that his son still couldn't speak, as if he had been poison mute. Now, he didn't dare to throw a tantrum and hurriedly sent people to search for that female talisman master. He didn't hesitate to spend a huge sum of money to send everyone in the city to find Arbor, just so that Arbor could cure his son's poison. However, Arbor was completely unaware of all this. When she and Qi Xianxian came out of closed-door cultivation, the Sunlight Academy's registration was already in full swing. The two of them tidied up and ate something before rushing to the Sunlight Academy's registration area. Looking from afar, the center of the city was filled with people. The two of them looked at each other. Qi Xianxian laughed foolishly. As expected of the Sunlight Academy, the registration area is really packed. With so many people signing up, we will probably have to wait for a long time. There were 4 assessment tables set up at the registration point. The two of them were at the end of the third line. Looking at the line moving at the speed of a turtle, Arbor couldn't help but look around. After looking around for a long time, Arbor couldn't help but feel a little discouraged when he didn't see Situ, E, and the others. Where did senior brother Situ and the others go? Could it be that they had some kind of fortuitous encounter as soon as they entered Shantian Prefecture? Jojo, don't think too much. Since we're already here, let's just take things as they come. Anyway, we don't know where to go. Why don't we go to the Sunlight Academy and train there for half a year? We can improve our cultivation by leaps and bounds. What do you think? Of course, it's up to fate to increase one's cultivation. Hey, Jojo, look over there. Another table has been moved out. Is it because there are too many people, so they added a test table at the last minute? Very likely, Arbor nodded. Then let's hurry over. Qi Xianxian was quick to react. She grabbed Arbor and jumped towards a 5th table that had just been moved out. Coincidentally, the two of them occupied the first position at the front of the table. It's the two of you? An arrogant voice suddenly sounded in their ears. Arbor looked up. It was the man and woman she met at the entrance of the talisman shop 2 days ago. You're tuning in to the Dreamy Chapters YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.